Hey now, AdamReever, here saying check out NEZ Says.
We're live! Today's Thursday, September 17th, and you tuned into NEZ Says, a place where musicians can come together and inspire each other to play more guitar. Thanks for being with us tonight. We have an amazing show for you tonight. My name is Dave Nesdall, and this is my co-host, Ty Price. Oh, sorry. John Mancuda is here. Our guest co-host, John Mancuda, and Purple Hippo?
Blue Rhino. And Blue Rhino's with me. Blue Rhino's
Rhino.
with me.
There you go.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have an incredible guest for you tonight. You guys know him, you love him. From the band Autograph, from the master of eight-fingered tapping, from his own solo career and tons of clinics and instructional books, and he's just as much a virtuoso as he is a teacher for us all. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Steve LYNCH.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hey,
Not to mention,
Not
to mention, Steve is an incredibly nice guy. I can't tell you how good a conversationalist he is. So just beware and have a great time, everybody. In the chat tonight, Chris Bevan, Music Therapy Laz, Jeff Cornell, Fruitcake Tony. Fruitcake Tony, I think we may have a surprise for you later.
We do.
Jeff Cornell, Dave Scher, Desiree Dornan, my lovely fiance, Susie Cherry is here. Who
Susie!
Who else is here? Ben Coombs
Everybody.
is here. Ben Coombs is here. We have people talking in the chat already.
IROC Blues, Mike Neese, Thomas Santiago, Mike is himself, Thunder Falcon,
The Chad?
Richard Nesdall. Richard
My dad.
Nesdall.
My father.
Oh,
is
there you
here.
go. Hi, Dad.
Yeah. If we're not careful, my mom may show up too.
Uh-oh.
See.
Mama Nez.
We'll see. Well, not Mama Nez anymore, but yeah. Anyway, hello everybody. This is Steve. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing fantastic.
Awesome. Let's get the party started. So I gotta know, you started on bass guitar.
Uh-huh.
You're a, as far as I'm concerned, you're a guitar god. You're a guitar, you're one of my heroes. When I first saw Turn Up the Radio, I was like, oh my God, Eddie Van Halen who? And I'm not saying that not to weigh one against the other, but
Absolutely,
geez, what you did, what you took from him and went so much further with eight fingers, incredible. But what I need to know is the bass first. Tell me about that.
I started playing bass in 1967. I got my first guitar actually when I was 9 in 1964, but it was after the Beatles came out, and my older sister had a little listening party with all her cute girlfriends over there, and I thought, this is what I want to do. Is I want to play guitar. I love the Beatles and everything, and we saw.
It's always about the girls. It's always about the girls.
Yeah. So anyway, but it was such a cheap guitar. It was just a Stella. It was made, my dad got it from the Sears and Roebuck catalog, and it was $9, and the strings were so high off the neck. I mean, I was 9 years old. I couldn't even make a chord unless I actually stood on the neck itself, But I got my first real instrument when I was 12 in 1967, and the kid down the block played guitar already. And so what we wanted to do was put together a band. He played guitar and sang, and so I thought, well, I'll play bass, And so I got a Lyle bass guitar, a little Supro amplifier, and we started to learn songs together. And but what happened a couple of years in is he had an accident and died. His name was Jerry Hendrix, and I thought, that's very close to Jimi Hendrix. During the whole time that I was playing bass with him, I actually really wanted to play guitar, and I was just an avid, fan of Jimi Hendrix. And so when Jerry passed away, and then shortly thereafter, Jimi Hendrix passed away. So it was Jerry Hendrix, then Jimi Hendrix.
Now this is 1970. You were about 15.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I was 15,
Okay.
and that's when September 18th, 1970, I traded. That's when Hendrix died, and I traded my bass in for a Stratocaster, and my dad took me up there, and and so I traded it in and got that, and every since then I've been a guitar player, and I actually quit school, and my dad said, you know what, you can't live here if you're not going to school. So I actually borrowed the tent that we had from him. He actually gave me the tent, and I set it up in a friend of mine's field. I cut out all the blackberry bushes and set up the tent, and that's where I lived for a year. I lived in a tent.
So your dad basically said, you're not going to school. You want to be a musician. You're a bum. You get out. You can't live here. So you're like, all right, Dad, in pure rock and roll style, you just grab the tent, and now I'm living in my neighbor's yard. So it's you, the guitar, in the tent, like Snoopy's doghouse kind of thing.
Yes.
Wow.
And where was like your friends, family, like taking care of you? Like, hey, we should probably bring that kid out some food and water or something? Or
Oh no, what my friend James's mom did, her name was Ethel, and I'd pay her $1 a day, and she'd feed me breakfast, and then she'd feed me dinner, which are always huge meals. And
Wow.
I was going to work. I worked at a stereo place where we built speaker cabinets, and we wired crossovers and everything, and we built PA systems. And so I was learning a lot, actually. Working, I was making $1.25 an hour, but I wasn't paying rent. I wasn't paying electricity. I just had an extension cord going from their house out to the tent, and I had my little electric heater, and I had a lamp, and I had my little amplifier in there. And
did you plug the amp into their house so in the backyard you could like hear you noodling on the amp in the backyard?
Oh,
that's
well,
awesome.
It was to the side of their house, but it was in the middle of a huge patch of stickers, so nobody could even see my tent from the road. It was just like hidden completely back there in the blackberry bushes. So it was just a great experience. I had everything I needed, and it was a very inexpensive way to live. So.
I'm thinking of doing that right now. I'm going to get rid of my house, and there's a lot of bridges here in LA that have a lot of musicians under it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So,
So now how long did you live in that tent in the backyard?
I lived there for a year.
So up till you were about 16 now?
Yeah. And then she offered, because the tent was starting to get moldy and everything, and I was fighting off the spiders constantly. So she offered me to move into their basement. So I did that, and I went down and cleaned out their basement and put a bed in down there. And the spiders were even worse down there.
That's one thing. I could take snakes. I could take most things. Spiders, no way.
No, this is not me either. I'm not a spider fan at all.
No.
So.
There's like Indiana Jones of guitarists. He's just like kind of wandering through the cobwebs in the basement.
Right.
And still the same $1 rent?
Yeah. Same
This
thing.
is
I
awesome.
was basically just paying for the food. So, it worked out very well. And she made everything from scratch. She was an amazing cook. She was fairly elderly at that point. She was in her 70s then. So.
And now all this while you're learning guitar self-taught, like all
Yes.
self-taught? Did you have like
I was doing
instructional
everything,
books
just
or?
self-taught. I had a little turntable that I used to wear out spots on the record, and I'd have to take another $5 and go and buy a new Are You Experienced album or the early Jeff Beck stuff, and that I was learning from when he was with Rod Stewart, and whatever I was learning at the time, I would have to just go and buy the record and just learn it by ear. And eventually I started taking lessons from this guy, Don Mock in West Seattle. And he ended up being a teacher down at the Guitar Institute. But it was just an amazing time, working at the stereo shop and being able to practice really as much as I wanted, so. It was a
So
great
now,
experience.
so now we're about 1971, 72-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're living in the basement. You're self-taught, and now you have an instructor. and you're picking up on this. How long were you practicing a day? How many hours
I'd
at
say
that time?
at that point about 4 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I was really getting to know the guitar very well, especially helped when I started taking lessons because he gave me a lot of stuff to work on. And then I started actually playing professionally in my first band, my first professional band anyway. I was playing in other bands before that time, we started, but it was just like backyard party stuff, and my first professional band was a group called Outlawed. And I was actually going out and playing clubs and making money doing that. So I quit the stereo shop and was making enough of a living just playing clubs. So, and then it went from Outlawed into another band called Ross Taylor Band. There was no Ross Taylor. It was just like we were just trying to make up a name, just like Jethro Tull. But then it ended up Jethro Tull was actually a real person.
Oh, so John earlier was telling me that when you were an Outlawed, you were probably more popular in the clubs than Van Halen was.
Not that band. That was a little later when he got to L.A.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to that though.
Oh,
but you were in Silverlode though, which was in Seattle at that time, like a very popular club band, right?
Yeah, Seattle or Silverlode was actually getting fairly popular and playing all the bigger venues in the Seattle area. And, I joined that, and I think it was like 76, and we played 76 and 77 with that. And then when we were playing in Montana, and we toured all the time. I mean, we were constantly touring in that band. And at this point, I had a little house in Des Moines, Washington, south of Seattle, and that would be our jam place and everything. But what happened was I called up because I was coming back into town, when we were playing in Montana, and I was going to set up some lessons with Don Mock. And they said, well, he's not here. And I said, what? He's not there anymore. Where is he? And they said, well, he went down to help, with the curriculum and teaching down at this new guitar school down in LA, down in Hollywood, called the Guitar Institute of Technology. And I just went, what? There's a guitar school? I thought that's the coolest thing in the world, And so they didn't have the number at the store where he used to teach at. So I called up information from the hotel room in Montana, and I actually got the number. And I called, 213-462-1384. I still remember the number.
Wow.
And
it's amazing.
And I called up the number, and I got a hold of this lady, Becky Hicks, who kind of ran the place with her husband, Pat Hicks, who owned the school. And I asked for Don Mock, and she said, well, just a minute. And she said, I'll see if he's between classes. And sure enough, he was. So he came back and got on the phone. I said, Don, what's up with this new school? And he said, Steve, quit your band, sell your gear, and get your ass down here. And 3 months later, I was there.
Nice. So that's how you started moving to LA, was specifically on his recommendation. Yes, I mean, that school at the time was groundbreaking.
February of 78, yeah.
The school at the time was groundbreaking. A lot of artists wound up going there because there wasn't a lot like it, really.
That's very true. Yeah.
I mean, you had certain college programs, but specifically, the Guitar Institute of Technology division of Musicians Institute. I mean, that was really its own thing. It wasn't like you went to Juilliard and they have, certain classes for musicians and whatever. This was its own entity, especially in LA. Here's an up and coming area. And, you, like a lot of other artists, made the move over there. And where did you live when you first got to LA? What did you do? You rented a place?
What I did was, they set you up with a roommate, and the rent was pretty cheap back then. It was like, I think $400 a month. So me and my roommate, we split that. And he was a jazz guitarist. In fact, all the guitarists at the school at that time were all jazz guitars. Everybody had, the big box guitars, either the 335 or the S175s and all that, the old Gibsons, with the big, F-hole, tops and everything. And I was the only one that basically had a solid body guitar. So here I am with all these jazz guys, and I got bell bottoms on with skin cut bell bottoms with platform shoes and a shag haircut, in a leather coat and a solid body guitar, and they're going, well, "Who's this guy? You know, why is he here?" But I fit right in after a while. You know, people got accustomed to me, and I got accustomed to them. So it was just a very cool experience.
Very cool.
Now, you when you first started getting into the tapping thing, because I know it wasn't influenced by Van Halen. I know there were early guys that were doing that, like in the '60s and the '50s. You just didn't see them very often, but you
Yeah.
can find videos of them on YouTube now and whatnot. But
Right.
how did you start getting into doing something so unique? Because even your style of tapping is very different than Eddie's.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I was never influenced by him because, basically I'm older than him.
And handsomer, much handsomer.
And so I got into it. There was this guy in Seattle named Steve Buffington who used to do some stuff, with it. And I asked him, seeing him at the clubs and everything, I said, what is that you're doing? And he showed me a few of the tricks. And then there was a guitarist named Harvey Mandel, he used to play with John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, who I'd seen back in, I think, 1971. I was only 16. And, and I watched him do some of that stuff. So I started playing around with it way back then. But what really got me into it was when I was going to the Guitar Institute, and the guy, Emmett Chapman, who invented the Chapman stick, he was doing a clinic there, and it was all about how to play this instrument, with two hands on the fingerboard, your left hand comping on the lower notes, and on 5 strings, and then your right hand playing on a higher register of strings, playing the melody and solos and everything, just more like on a piano, but your hands are directly touching the strings.
For those that don't know, for those that don't know, let me just interrupt. A Chapman stick is like a 10 or 12 string,
It's
big
10 string,
wide. Yeah, it's a big wide, almost like a plank. Imagine something like a lap steel guitar, but standing up a little narrower.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it's a big wide 10-string guitar. Just for those in the audience that don't know what you're referring to. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
5 bass strings and 5 lead strings.
There you go.
And I watched him play, and during his clinic, he mentioned that he got so far, with playing on guitar, that he decided to come up with an instrument where he could accompany himself with it, playing, with his left hand doing the comping and then his right hand playing the melodies and the solos and everything. So I asked him after the clinic, I said, what were you talking about when you said that you got so far on guitar that you had to invent this instrument? And so he said, can I see your guitar? And I said, yeah, sure. And so I handed him my guitar. And he did this thing where it was like, two hands, like one hand playing, one shape of the pentatonic, like say A minor pentatonic. And then he went up and played a completely different shape and just went, and I just went, that's it. That's so cool. Because it just showed that you could play anything as far as pentatonic scales, full major scales. You can play triads, you can play chord inversions, you can play arpeggios, you can play anything you want to. You just have to figure out how to do it. And so I was writing everything. I started writing out everything that I was learning at the Guitar Institute, all those different things, like the triads and the arpeggios and all the different scale positions and everything. And I
was that where you first started learning theory and how to read music and things like that? Okay.
Yeah, there was a little bit that I had learned from Don Mock previously, like he showed me the scale positions and all that, and I practiced, reading music and everything, but the school really threw me into a whole different, zone. I mean, I was like, holy cow, there's so much more to the guitar than I could ever have imagined. But everything that I was learning, I wrote down these guitar graphs so I could write down everything two-handed so I wouldn't forget it. And so I'd have the pentatonic, one position of the pentatonic scale here, then I'd add the other position here with my right hand. And I did this with everything. I mean, everything that I was learning. And it ended up being my first book. I mean, by the time I graduated, I had a stack of papers like that, I had of all this material that I'd written up. And so after when we did the graduation ceremony, I played this song by Freddie Hubbard, this jazz standard called Little Sunflower. And I played it all two-handed, and people didn't know exactly how to take it, but at the end of it, they thought it was so unique. There's this thunderous applaud, and from all the staff and the students there. And then I got a standing O, and right afterwards, Howard Roberts, who wrote the curriculum for the school, you're just a genius of a guy, along with Tommy Tedesco, who was a teacher there at the time. He was a #1 studio guy in LA for years and years. And they said, you should write a book about that. And I said, I already have enough for 3 books right now. And so, in fact, that's what I'm writing in my book right now, is about that adventure right there, meeting with those guys and having them take me to their publisher, which was Tales of Independent Publications, which later got bought out by Bellwin Mills and then later bought out by Warner Brothers. But my first book stayed with them the whole time. And my first book became a bestseller.
And what year was that released?
That was released in '79.
So right out of school, you were writing an instructional book on this unique way to play guitar. Right out of the gate, you were like an innovator.
Well, I was doing it while I was going to school, but then I put it together into book format, and I just put out some of the easiest ideas. Some of the chord inversions and the pentatonic scales and everything, and how to play it two-handed and all that, I just had been writing it down. I didn't think about writing a book. I just wrote it down so that I wouldn't forget these ideas. That's where it all came from.
So, and that was the Right Touch Volume 1.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. Yes. And then later on, in '86 and '87, I wrote Volume 2 and 3.
Right, the Right Touch Volume 1, 2, and 3. Awesome. So yeah, anyone want to get those books and learn all that stuff?
Well, I'm gonna reprint them. I have. Actually, all of them on disc, and so I'm gonna reprint them. I'm gonna reboot my site up and everything. But right now, my main concentration is going into the book, obviously, my autobiography. Because it's a lot of work. I'm having a gas doing it, but man, is it tedious and arduous work? Because I'm doing it all myself. I don't have a ghostwriter or anything. It's my own words. So I have to make sure all the punctuation is correct and all that kind of stuff. And spelling and all that, but
I got to tell you that the working name that you have for that book it's brilliant. I don't think you should change it. I think Confessions of a Rock Guitarist is amazing.
It does say what it is.
That was my first thing. I was thinking about calling it, Confessions of an '80s rock guitarist, but then I'm kind of pigeonholing myself into just being an '80s guitarist.
Right?
You've transcended that as well.
Yeah. I've been playing since the '60s and into the '90s and 2000s. So
I know you got a lot of decades under your fingers there.
Yeah, you're still going. I mean, Aerosmith, you can't say is a '70s band or an '80s band. They kept going. They're still going. So same thing with you.
They're hugely popular now, but the most radio play they got obviously was during the '70s.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the '80s, the '80s were also very popular for them. But I think the '80s were also very popular for them. I think in general, rock and roll was very popular. Guitar rock was very popular during both those periods. So now you've written your first book. You're in school at the same time. Now you're really having a good time. Did you start playing with bands, or now that you're in Los Angeles and you're meeting other musicians? Take me into the club scene that you're first starting to get acquainted with other local guys and forming bands.
Well, after I graduated and had written the book, and the book was released, I started to do session work. Actually, my name was kind of getting out there. Here's this guy that, and I did a demo tape, and a lot of people heard that. It was just like a 3-song demo tape. It was all instrumental. And that tape got a lot of recognition, and so
was this all originals or was this cover? Okay,
yeah, it was all original stuff. Yeah, and I was playing with kind of a jazz fusion band, and it was just stuff that we put together. And anyway, but a lot of people, took notice of it, and I started to get offers to do studio stuff. And my first studio thing was Greg Lake from Emerson, Lake and Palmer,
Wow.
and that I thought, wow, that's
right out of the gate. Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
I also did some stuff. I played on a couple things. I don't know if they were demos or actually songs made it by Donna Summer. I played on a few albums for this. I think her name was Tamika or something like that. She was a Japanese artist, singer that was very popular. But we were doing the sessions in Dablin Studios in North Hollywood. And and I played on 3 different albums of hers. Like probably 4 or 5 songs on each album, and I don't know if it was actually used or not because it was all in Japan, but I got paid well for it, and I was just doing a variety of different studio stuff, and that kind of got me in connection with a lot of the different musicians in LA at the time, and so I started playing in bands. There was a group called The Word that I played in, and then there was Looker, and then Wolfgang. I think I just played in the tail end of Wolfgang. Wolfgang was a band that was actually in like around 76 or 77. They were actually more popular playing the club scene than Van Halen was. Now,
Kevin Dubrow has been quoted as saying, "We as Quiet Riot played with them and Van Halen, and out of the 3 of us, we got blown away by Wolfgang."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Now, when you were with Wolfgang, is that where you met Steve Plunkett the first time?
Yeah.
And he was also in Looker with you? Or?
Actually, we played in a group before that called Looker.
Okay, so he was in Looker. And who did you meet in Wolfgang that was in Autograph eventually?
It was Steve Plunkett. It was Randy Rand, and that was it. I think Kenny might have played drums in the latest version of Wolfgang. So we all kind of knew each other, and then the keyboard player, Steve Isham, I actually had met him in Seattle. I had a bicentennial 4th of July party at my place on Green Lake up in Seattle, and that's where I met him. He was in a popular Seattle group called Bighorn, and weirdly enough, I was moving into this apartment in Glendale, California. You know where Glendale's at.
Sure. I'm in Hollywood, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so what happened was I'm moving into this apartment, and Steve Isham was moving out of it. I went, wow, what are the odds? In a city of 16 million people, here we are, and so it was quite the odds. What are the odds of that happening? And
for sure.
So, we said, whoa, because we had lost contact with each other. And so we ended up playing in the band, Autograph together as well. And Randy couldn't do Autograph at first because he was playing with Lita Ford. And actually we were all playing with different groups that were signed. Me and the keyboard player were playing with Holly Penfield and Dreamland Records. The singer, Steve Plunkett, was playing in a group called
Silver something.
Silver Condor.
That's it, Condor.
That was on Columbia. And then Kenny was playing in a group called The Coup on A&M Records. And, of course, Randy was with Lita Ford. But what happened was Steve Plunkett owned a part of the PA that we were using out at this rehearsal place called Victory Studios in North Hollywood. And we would go out there and we'd just jam, since we were all friends and we'd all played together in some form of band, at some point. And so we started jamming out there and we started writing songs. And Andy Johns, the producer, who had, him and his brother had worked with, Led Zeppelin and the Stones and John Lennon, and the list just goes on and on and on. But he came down one day. He was a friend of ours and came down and listened to our songs. And he said, "You know what, guys? I've got free time at Ocean Way Studio down on Sunset. Why don't we go in this weekend and make a demo?" And we said, "Yeah, sure, if it's free,
Yeah.
And
it's the best 4-letter word in the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so we went into the next weekend. We cut a 5-song demo, and one of the songs was called "Turn Up the Tape Machine." It wasn't "Turn Up the Radio" at that point.
Kidding.
Yeah. And so we went in and recorded that. And then Kenny took a copy of that after we were all done with it, mixing and mastering it. He took it with him. He was jogging every day with David Lee Roth. And so.
Don't you wish you were getting more exercise back then?
Oh, well. Yeah, kind of.
Everyone's like lazy at home, sitting on their couch, practicing. You should have gone out and gone jogging. Oh, Diamond Dave. Yeah, let's go for a run.
but they became good friends, and he met him every morning at 8:30, and they went jogging up Sunset Boulevard, believe it or not. And they were dressed so that nobody would recognize David. And so anyway, David asked him, what he was doing. Then Dave and Kenny said, "Oh, I just made this demo with this band. We're not really a band. We just get together on the weekends and jam." And so Kenny played it for David when they got back to David's place, and David loved it. And he said, "Would you consider going out on tour with us? On 1984 tour?" And Kenny said, well, yeah, of course, But we all were playing in different bands that were signed, and so what we did was, we talked to the other bands that we were in, and we thought, what, we have time. We're not doing anything. We're not touring or anything.
You're on hiatus.
And so we thought we'd go out for a few months and just have fun with it. And so we said, yeah, let's do it. Let's have fun. So we actually thought of the name Autograph, on the way, driving from LA in a Winnebago all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, and so here it is, like 3,000 miles, and we thought of a name on the way. And we thought, because we had kind of a signature sound, we didn't really sound like anybody. We thought, well, we'll call it Autograph, and we'll think of something. If we want to keep going, we'll think of something later on. Well, next thing you know, we have all these record companies that are hearing us and loving us while we're opening up for Van Halen. And we started to get offers at the Omni in Atlanta. And
well, hold on, before you even get there, you didn't just have a Winnebago laying around, right? You guys pitched in and rented one, and same with the equipment, right? Did you also rent the equipment? Because all of a sudden your friend comes back from jogging and he's like, "Hey guys, not for nothing, I just went jogging today. Do you guys want to play in literally the biggest tour of one of the biggest bands ever, the 1984 tour? Do you guys want to, open up for them?" I mean, your jaws must have dropped. Did you think he was kidding at first?
No, we knew he was serious because of the way he was telling us, and we were a bit concerned about being able to go out with him if we really could do that at that time. But, we thought, to hell with it. And we got permission from all the other, groups that we were involved with at that time. And so we went out and did it. And the next thing you know, we're getting all these offers, and we just took our own equipment. This is what we did. We owned our own equipment, Right. So we just went out and did that. We didn't need a PA, of course, or lighting or anything like that. But we did it, and all these record companies, they loved us. They thought we had some really cool songs. We had written a couple more before we went out on tour. And
so on the way down to Jacksonville, Florida, you guys are writing as you're driving down, coming up with a couple more.
We had written them in rehearsal beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we had a full half-hour set was all we had. So we had a full half-hour set, ready to go and rehearse and everything. So we played our first gig in Jacksonville, Florida on my birthday. It was my 29th birthday in 1984.
That's a nice birthday present.
Yeah.
And take me through that. So you guys get to the venue. Who do you talk to, and what's the atmosphere like? Obviously he knew Dave. Did you guys already know Van Halen, or were you introduced there on the spot, or did you have to go through their management first? I mean, walk us through that first show in Jacksonville.
Well, Steve Plunkett and Randy, they had, met, Michael Anthony before, and obviously they had met Eddie and Alex before from playing clubs, like the Starwood and Kazari's and all those clubs in the whole Hollywood area. So, but they didn't really know each other very well, but, they kind of knew each other. So it was like, oh, cool. You guys going to be open up for us, when we saw Eddie and Alex and all that. So there was a camaraderie there right away, except for Noel Monk, their manager, found out that I was the one who wrote the book on that two-handed technique. And so he thought it would be, contradictory for me to play that technique on stage. So he said I wasn't going to be able to do it.
So it didn't actually come from Eddie. It came from Noel Monk.
Yeah, no,
because the way everyone says it is Eddie Van Halen had us talk to you and said, I did this first. I don't want you doing it.
Well,
so it's actually Noel that.
I had the feeling that the word came from Eddie when Eddie found out that I was the guitar player in the group, that he might have said something to Noel. Now that was never said to me, but I had that feeling, because I later told Eddie, I said, I was a bit toasted on Jack Daniels one night, and I grabbed Eddie and pulled him into the room, and I said, hey, look at, I wrote a book on this technique. I had never heard your name before. I had written a book, and so.
That must have gone over well.
Yeah, well, he was kind of put on the spot, and he says, listen, you can do what you want, and so then I started using it, but you couldn't hear me in the mix out in the front, so.
Well, that's terrible.
Because it's kind of a conflict. It's kind of a conflict because here's David Lee Roth does a big, massive favor for you, puts you on the biggest stage in the world, and then you're conflicted because you're asked not to do your own technique because of Eddie, and you're like, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but this is how I play these songs.
Right.
I mean, what's going through your head at that point?
Well, when I was told that I couldn't play that technique, I went back into the room where the rest of our dressing room where the rest of the band was, and I said, I'm not going on. I said, I'm bailing from this. And they said, what, you can't do this, And I said, look at, this is something I've worked on for years, and now I'm being told that I can't do it, I said, I don't really want to be on this tour, But they talked me into it. They just said, look, just kind of improvise, get up there and do it, and we'll just see how it goes, So I decided, okay, I'll do it, but I wasn't very happy with it at all. I was really disappointed because I put myself in that same position. Like if I was in the headlining band and some guitar player was playing a technique similar to mine, and I would just go, hey, that's great. Let's do some jamming backstage. Let's have fun. And so because I'm a very non-competitive person, I look at it like I don't like
camaraderie,
any conflict whatsoever.
It's camaraderie. It's not competition.
Right.
First
exactly.
of all,
I mean, I always looked at it like, hey, this is an art. This is not a sport. So
Exactly.
let's have fun with it. I mean, everybody expresses themselves through music. So why should there be any level of competition at all? I've always been severely opposed to that, and so. I was very let down with that. To say the least, I was very disenchanted.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
and originally your solos were done pretty much like the Turn Up the Radio solo was done with your left hand as well, right?
Yeah,
with my right hand as well. Yeah.
Right hand
with your right hand as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, what I was saying is, at this time in 1984, Eddie Van Halen had nothing to prove to anyone. He was number one in every guitar poll. He was in everybody's household. Everybody knew who Eddie Van Halen was.
And that's the way I looked at it.
Or what he did.
Like he's the king of the hill.
Why not have a new guy come up with something? It's similar, but it's different. Why not let him show his stuff?
Yeah.
Just let him do his thing.
I didn't comprehend it. I didn't understand the whole thing behind it. Like, why wouldn't he want me to do my own thing? I mean, it's not like I copied him. And he knew that. There was a guy, Stephen Rosen, that was writing a book about him.
Yeah, we know him. We know Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was telling me the story. This was back when he was writing the book, but he was still with BAM magazine out of the Bay Area, Mm-hmm. And he told me that when people talk to Eddie, they'd say, "Have you seen this guy Steve Lynch that does all this stuff with all 4 fingers on both hands?" And he said that Eddie would get so mad he'd get red in the face, And so when he found out I was
opening
with him, it didn't go over too well, I don't think.
Yeah.
So.
The audience is seeing you do it first for that night, and then they're seeing Eddie, and they're like, "Oh, so that's where Eddie got it."
Well, I mean, at that time, whoever went to the 1984 tour had gone to every tour since '78.
Yeah.
So
it's
not like I went to my first Van Halen concert was in '81. I was 11 years old. I didn't know much about guitar. I played guitar. I mean, I had my first guitar by then, and I played a little bit, but I didn't even know what a Van Halen was.
Yeah.
I went with a buddy of mine from school, from like first grade, and it was fourth grade, I guess. It was fourth grade, and his dad, and all I saw was this red guitar, this loud, crazy music, and women with their tops up.
Yeah,
I saw that,
and I was hooked. And then I saw you with Van Halen '84, and I thought, oh my God, that at that point, I knew more about guitar, knew more about rock and roll.
Yeah.
I was already a Van Halen fan, and I watched you, and I was like, oh my God, if this is the
At this
beginning
point
of
in
the
tour,
show,
was I using
wait
both
till
hands?
couldn't believe the whole show was amazing, both bands. But
At this point in the show or in the tour with them, was I using both hands at that point?
I have to believe it because I
Yeah.
remember I remember my mouth dropped because I was in New York then. I was Long Island. It was you played the Nassau Coliseum in '84.
Yeah.
So it had to have been. I can't remember exactly, but I remember that I was astonished by you as the guitar player in that band. So you had to have been using both hands at the time.
Yeah,
That-
because
I
I
can't-
started doing
remember-
it actually even
that-
before they gave me permission to do it, which
Uh-huh.
I thought was kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I started doing it because I thought, you know what, this is my thing. If we get fired from the tour, so be it. But
Yeah.
Good publicity. Good
Yeah.
publicity. And either way, this is also a time Eddie's starting to transition into doing the thing with the keyboards now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, come on, man. You've done this since what, 78? And you've done it since 78. So it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By this time.
Longer. Hey, can we take a quick second to get catch some questions from the chat?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's go back a little bit and see what's going on.
There are a couple I'm going to ask later on. Like I saw
The Chad, he's a buddy of ours, a good buddy of mine.
Hey, Chad.
He says Pat Hicks, Musicians Institute.
Yep.
I think he went there in '91. He says I did the summer session there in '91.
Pat Hicks is just great. You see, I mentioned earlier that Becky Hicks was the one that I first met from the school, and it was her husband Pat that actually owned the school, and they ran the whole school together, and so they're just great people. In fact, I talked to Pat not very long ago, a few years back when I was still in Seattle, and he was driving through Seattle. And him and his wife were on like a Winnebago trip. They bought this big, huge mobile home, and they were on this excursion. And they sold.
you should have sold them yours. You had that one.
No, we didn't have it. We just rented it. But
We'll give you a good deal, I swear.
Yeah, I was in the middle. I owned my school at the time, and I was in the middle of a lesson, and so I had my phone turned off, and so I didn't get it. And then I saw that, it's Pat Hicks, and so as soon as the lesson was over, I called Pat back, and by this time, he was well past Seattle. And unfortunately, I was unable to see him, but he was going to stop by and say hi, and I thought that would have been really cool because I hadn't seen him since probably 1985 or 86 when I went down to the school. They asked me to come down and do a photo shoot for and bring my gold albums with me, and so I went down there and did that, and it was really good promotion for the school. That ad ran for like a couple of years, and
This could be you.
yeah.
That's
really
exactly
cool.
what
That
it
was
is.
like probably the last time that I saw Pat, other than maybe when I did the clinic down there, which was probably a year after that.
Very cool.
Oh, cool. Our buddy Jay Hannon just entered the chat, by the way.
Hey Jay,
From-
what's up?
Hey, what's up?
Jay's guitarist to the band Gizmachi, if you haven't checked them out.
Oh, I got to check them out.
Yeah,
You should,
they're great.
absolutely.
They were on tour in 2005, and they just wrote and recorded a new record, and it's fantastic. So, Jim
very
Nicholas
cool.
in the chat says, "I'm curious if Steve used Floyd's prior to the Kahlers.
If what about the Floyd product?
If you used the Floyd Rose before you started using Kahlers."
No, it was actually I started using the Kahler when I got my first guitar from Jackson. They asked which one I wanted to use, and so they had a couple guitars down there with a Floyd and then one with a Kahler on it, and I liked the fluidity of the Kahler and the fact that you didn't have to cut off the balls of the strings when you changed them. You just drop the ball in the slot, and it was a lot quicker. And I thought, I really like these. And it had a lot of people didn't like them because they had the softer springs on it, but he put the heavier strings on it, so it had a little bit more of a pull to it. And so I endorsed Kaler and I endorsed Jackson the whole time with using just Kalers. And then Kaler kind of, I don't know, they just, they kind of fell to the wayside. And
I think the air left the sails.
So I started using Floyd's, and then I got used to them. So,
Well, I remember you saying once in a magazine interview what you liked about Kaler was that you could pull back on them, as to where most of the Floyds, before the trem started getting recessed, you couldn't really, you could do dive bombs, but you really couldn't pull up.
Right, and I did a lot of things where I was pulling up above pitch, so
right.
That was another reason why I really liked the Kaler, and that was the thing, is that they didn't have that where it was routed out, so you could pull up.
You can thank Steve Vai for that.
The body, and I didn't like that because I wasn't able to pull up, and so that was another reason why I stayed with Kaler all that time.
Yeah, here's an old ad that you did in the magazines for Kaler.
Oh,
for those that
I remember that ad.
That's you and Plunkett.
We look wasted in that.
Which is how you should look as an 80s rock star. That's otherwise why get in it?
What's that?
Otherwise, why get into it if you couldn't get wasted back then? That was the fun time.
Right.
The good years. So now you're touring with Van Halen. You're still an unsigned band. A lot of people don't realize this. When you were on that Van Halen tour, you came up with the autograph name on a play on Def Leppard's Photograph. But where did you come up with the cardiac symbol as your go-to symbol, your EKG lightning bolt there?
Okay, well, autograph, which actually means one graph, okay? That graph sign, I thought, I'm going to put a graph on my guitar since it's called autograph. So I'm going to put just a single graph going across my guitar, and that'll be like my signature. And that's where it came from.
Very cool.
Do you have a guitar to show with that thing on it? Yes.
Now, which one is this? This isn't your original Charvel. Is that a Dean?
No, that's Dale Roberts. He's out of Jacksonville, Florida, and I was with Dean for a while, but the guy Elliot died, the owner, and I wanted them to make a custom guitar for me like that, and they never got around to it, and they kept on giving me models that were already manufactured, and they said, yeah, we can put the stripe on it for you, but they weren't to my to the dimensions that I like, to my specifications. So I talked to this guy Dale Roberts out of Jacksonville, and he said, we went in and discussed for hours. I wanted this really slender body. I'll grab another one for you here. And you see what it has. Look at how thin it is.
Nice.
See, and look at the back. You see in that
neck
one,
through,
right up to the 24th fret.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and this one is black with the deep blue graph going across it. And this is the main one I'm playing with the latest version of Autograph. But this is the best playing guitar I've actually ever played. Because we really, I kept on telling them, take down the neck more, shave down the body more, and use stainless steel frets on it. It just turned out to be absolutely by far the best and fastest guitar that I've ever played.
Nice.
And you
were originally more into the bolt-ons because you started with a Fender Strat bolt-on, then you got into the Charvels,
right,
which were originally bolt-ons, and then later your first neck throughs, I guess, were the Jacksons of those, right? Because you had a blue soloist with an orange lightning bolt. We'll look at your gear in a little bit. I want to take us up to. So now you're touring with Van Halen. How was the camaraderie on the tour? Aside from the little tension between you and Eddie and the little tapping wars, how were you guys getting along? Were you partying? Were you buddying?
We got along very well, actually. Now, the Van Halen band, they weren't getting along that well.
That was when Dave and Eddie were,
exactly.
clashing.
And even Eddie and Alex were fighting a lot. And Michael Anthony would walk right off stage, because he knew what was going to go on in the dressing room, backstage with the whole Van Halen camp. So he would walk directly over to our dressing room wearing his Jack Daniels base, carrying a bottle of Jack Daniels and crack it open and start drinking, and then handing it to us. And he'd spend the whole night. Sometimes he'd even ride on the tour bus with us. So it was really cool. We had a great time with him. And
That's very cool.
yeah, and David would come by sometimes and say hi. The Van Halen brothers, they were pretty much to themselves. They were pretty much doing their own thing. And anyway, so I didn't see them that much. But what I did see of David Lee Roth, we went to the Cheetah 3 in Atlanta and to the strip club, and that was just what a gas. I mean, those are just great times. I'm going to write all about that in my book too, all the different adventures that we had. But there was a comedian up on stage at the strip club, and he didn't recognize David Lee Roth, but he started making fun of him because he's a flamboyant looking guy.
Sure.
And so David got up on stage with him, and they started going back and forth, cutting each other down, and it was hilarious, and it became a battle, of wits going back and forth.
Wow.
And David won, and this guy just laid down on stage with his microphone, and David put his foot up on top of him and started shaking his hands, and just, the whole club was just going nuts, because
did they know it was Dave? Was he like incognito, or was it like obviously Dave?
Well, it was during the wintertime, so he's wearing this big coat with a hood. But when we got to the club, he took the coat off, and that's when all the dancers there and the clientele at the bar, they just went, whoa! But there was security all around us, so they didn't let anybody get near the table. But that was a lot of fun. That was just a great night. So.
And what was like the craziest thing you remember about, because you played 48 shows with them, what was like the craziest moment of that whole tour you remember? Gosh, there was so much craziness. That's definitely one of them there, because it was that crazy. But there were several occasions where the fans became a little bit unruly, and especially when we were hanging out with David, they would try to flock to him and everything. But man, we were drinking a lot on that tour, drinking and all kinds of stuff on that tour. But it's your first big experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Was that the moment you realized, like, oh my God, guys, we've made it? I mean, this is it.
Well, I think it was when we were playing Madison Square Gardens. We're still the opening act, but when we were playing Madison Square Gardens, it was when RCA, they had been bugging us at a couple previous shows, but when we were playing there, it was 2 nights sold out, and they said, look, we're gonna beat everybody else's offer for you guys out, because Epic was vying for us, and so was Geffen and Warner Brothers and A&M and everything. And so RCA said, look, we're going to give you 100% of the publishing. We're not taking any of the publishing. You got 100% of it, which is it's
that's rare for a new band.
Yeah,
rare.
Exactly. It's basically unheard of.
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, and we actually signed a deal with them backstage, and that was it. And then we did some more shows with Van Halen, but then they said, guys, there's no reason for you to be out on tour. You're not really promoting anything. Let's get you back to LA and start on the first album. And so that's what we did.
Yeah. Now, also with that, this is also a time where, again, was this also a time where Dave's like, picking out the groupies for the night and looking in the audience and, the whole backstage pass, you get $100 if you pick my girl or something like that.
Yes. Right.
Good times. Good
all
times.
All kinds of that stuff going on. Yeah.
That's the 80s rock star. This is what you've worked for.
That's
so
right.
So now that you have publishing rights, did you guys like agree we're splitting it 5 ways and that's how we're doing it? Or did you start saying, well, I did that much and you did that percentage? Or was it just like real easy to like divvy it up? Like, okay, we succeed together, we work together, it's all even.
No, it was an even cut for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good. That makes for good camaraderie. Everyone gives 1,000%.
Yes, exactly.
So
go ahead.
Fruitcake Tony has a question, and it's a good one. Before you were able to do the two-handed stuff, did you do the solo to Turn Up the Radio all left-handed? What did you do to make up for the two-handed part?
You know, I did try to do a majority of it just left-handed. I left out. I basically played with the left hand, and I left out some of the
that thing.
Yeah, right, exactly. So what I was doing was I was just going da-da-da-da. I just add on another note with my left hand, you know, and that's the way I got through that. So
because a lot of that solo is two-handed and up to the end, from the middle to the end, it's all two-handed. Yeah, I get that. There's another question.
I paved my way through it, and you know, but I got through it okay, but it didn't last very long. I started using my right hand because I just thought, you know, if we're gonna get fired, we're gonna get fired, you know. But
right.
I want to be able to play with the way that I play. Like I said before, you know, I didn't know who Van Halen was, you know.
Yeah, you can't cheat the music. I mean, it's the way it was written.
Point, but when I started coming up with the technique, you know, they hadn't come out yet, you know. So,
and that solo also won an award in 1985 for what? Guitar World Best Solo of the Year. That's a big accomplishment considering all the other bands that were big at that time.
You know,
at that time, you had tons of guitar heroes out there.
Exactly. Soloing was like, you know, every 10 steps there was another great guitar solo.
And Deja Voodoo in the chat points out, you may be the only one with any memories of that 1984 tour because everyone else was just smashed.
That's right. So Chris Bevan in the chat says, "Do you still?" I know the answer to this. Do you still have the original Turn Up the Radio guitar?
No.
The black with yellow. That's in the Hard Rock, right?
Yes.
That one's in the Hard Rock.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show a couple of photos of.
Actually used in the Turn Up the Radio video. That was the white one with the red graph on it.
Right.
And that one, just to show everyone, because I have photos of that. That's this guy right here with a maple neck. And that one and cool. That one and the red one are in a private collector's hands right now. Someone that you apparently gave lessons to at one point.
Right. Yes.
So
and then there was a couple other that I gave away to the Hard Rock too. I think it was a total of 4. Yeah.
These two are in a private collector's hands. These are Charvels. And then you had, let's see, because I have a lot of useless knowledge like this.
I love keeping, you know, pictures of gear too. So
here's the original black and yellow. This one's in the Hard Rock. That's an original early Charvel. This one was used in a later capacity on the Loud and Clear recording. And that one's in a private collection.
That one has the reverse headstock.
Right, and that's in a private collection.
Yeah.
And then I brought up to you once before, I'll show this to the audience. This was made for you, but never got to you. This one here from Jackson.
I wonder why I never got it.
Oh no, this is interesting though. This had a Floyd at the time. I don't know if they made it and said, well, he kind of prefers Kahlers, but I think you were starting to use Floyds at that time, weren't you?
Yeah.
Around there?
Yeah. That would be the late 80s.
Yeah, this is 86 right here, this one.
Okay.
Man, that's a great guitar. In fact, I think you may have showed that guitar on the Johnny Bean show.
I did show it on Talking Guitars and 80s Metal Live, which is another podcast I do. But definitely had to bring it on for this one just to show you. And again, the offer's open. If you ever want to borrow it for a tour, just let me know and I'll ship it down to you for a while.
I may hit you up for that.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. It'd be really cool.
So, okay, so now we're recording the first album. Where did you guys do that? Was that over at Gower Studios?
No, it was at the record plant.
Okay, but still out in LA, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. We did all the recording basically at the record plant, and we did some at Cherokee, and we did some at Sound City, and Fox Run Studios, but most all of it was done. All 3 albums were done at the record plant. You know, we did some overdubs at the other places, but that was
how long. The first album, Sign In Please. How long did it take you to record that?
That was 30 days.
Wow, think about that.
That's not that bad.
And mastering.
That's not bad at all.
Oh yeah, it went really quick. But you know, all of us were like at this point, I was like almost 30 years old, and I'd done a lot of studio work, and so was Randy. Randy had already played on Leaded Forward's album, and he'd done several records, and so had Steve Plunkett, and so and Kenny had a lot of experience, and so did Steve Isham. So when we went in, things went really quick. We weren't beginners in the studio. We were all fairly polished studio musicians, and so it went very fast, and we not only recorded it, but we mixed and mastered it in that 30 days.
And you had the songs down already because you already toured it to death.
Yeah.
Almost 50 times. You'd been playing it night after night to great success. The audience reception was great, right? As I remember? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they loved us. There was only 2 places that they didn't like us, and that was in Nashville and at the Rosemont Horizon outside Chicago. Those were the only 2 places. The rest of all the other gigs, the other 46 gigs that we did with them, they all loved us just for some reason.
And I think
it was because they didn't put us on the marquee, and so they didn't expect an opening band. I think that's what it was.
Free, great music all of a sudden. Yeah. That's a nice surprise.
Yeah, that is a nice surprise.
A little more bang for your buck. So now you're recording the album. Did you guys already know? Hey, turn up the radio. This is going to be our single. This is going to be hot. Did you already know that, or?
Well, it's funny, but RCA didn't want that song on the album. They wanted the first release to be "Send Her to Me,"
which is a great song.
Hey guys, I love the song "Send Her to Me," but I'm thinking, for marketing value, turn up the radio. We were saying, look at guys, let's just turn up the radio. The radio stations are going to absolutely love it, and it's going to get requested like crazy. And so, we went in and recorded it anyway. Then when they heard it back, they thought, you know what, this is a big hit. This is a big hit.
So they didn't want it on the album at all?
No, they didn't. At first, they didn't even think it was strong enough to be on the album.
Wow. This is the joy of corporate suits that don't actually know music. They know to count beans, and everyone in the boardroom has to have a say to protect their job. I think that the band should all have red guitars. Noted. And I think they should do away with whatever song number 2 is. Noted.
Right. That's exactly correct.
And make sure they wear no socks but sneakers only.
Right.
Noted. But you guys knew, you saw the audience reaction to that song, that driving anthem, that pounding guitar. The audience is rocking along to it, and you're getting that reaction. You already know this.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we were telling them was that, hey, this is going to be a huge hit, and it ended up being a huge hit. Number 93 on the top 100 of most radio play and most requested songs of all time.
Literally one of the greatest rock songs ever.
It was
of all time.
In my top 5.
Yeah, and what we did to promote it, we did this. We went in one weekend. We went into the studio to do call letters. We'd all say, "Turn up the radio, WCLF." Which whatever that would be, or KYZO, so
it was almost turn up the tape machine. Turn up the tape machine
to do all the K's radio stations on the West Coast and all the W ones on the East Coast. And so it took us 2 8-hour days, like I said. And man, the radio stations loved that because it was personalized. And nobody had done that before. Not with all the radio stations.
It'll take you about 5 minutes doing for us.
Yeah, and so
this is when radio was a big medium.
Oh God, yeah,
and MTV was first starting.
Yeah, that's correct. MTV was still a baby at that point.
That's funny. Turn up the tape player. Almost came
Turn
really.
Up the tape machine.
Turn up the tape machine. That's great.
Well, I mean, it fits, but it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you're probably courted to death. The radio, the executives are probably like, oh, autograph. Oh, come on in. Come on. We have shrimp for the meeting, and it's the honeymoon. It's the honeymoon.
Yes, absolutely. No, they loved it, and every city we were going to when we did tours after that, we had to, come in for a presentation at the radio station, and
that's great.
And that was the first single, right?
Yes. It ended up being the first one. Yeah.
When was the first time you actually heard it played on the radio? Were you just
the funny thing is, we were all on the tour bus, and we were going out with, I think it was Aerosmith.
Nice.
And yeah, because 85, yeah, I think it was Aerosmith. But we were all on the tour bus together. The radio was on. We were leaving LA, and it came on, and we all freaked out. That was the
Yeah,
first
it's
time
that
we heard
feeling.
it. We were all together when we heard it. That was such a cool thing. You know?
Oh, you're probably melting with happiness at that.
Oh yeah.
That's very cool.
And the way radios compress that stuff, it sounds so good.
Oh, it does. I mean,
It
it
sounds
sounded
so good.
Oh, yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
So I'm gonna switch gears just a minute.
Uh-huh.
What gear did you use back then? What was the we know what the guitars were. What was the amplification, and if you had any pedals on the stage, what were you using as your sound?
The only thing that I had on stage itself was just the switching, the control panel, the foot switch panel.
So
that
was it a
controlling all the
Bradshaw?
stuff in my rack.
Was it a Bradshaw system? Did Bob Bradshaw make that for you?
No, actually, he recommended the way that I should hook it up and everything, but he didn't actually make it for me.
Uh-huh.
I had the Marshall preamp in there, and I had also the ADA. Remember the ADA?
Sure, it was my first rack. First rack.
And I had the Rocktron,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the Hush, gate.
Yep.
And oh god, I had multiple. I had an Eventide multiple effects unit. I had a Digitech multiple effects unit. I'm trying to think. It was like a 20 space rack.
So you had no heads on there. You were using like the JMP1 Marshall, or you were using the Marshall that came the 9001, I think it was called, maybe something like that.
No, it was just the preamp.
Right. It was just a one rack space preamp.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one it was actually. It was. I mean, this was
Did it have a
35 years
gold
ago.
front or a black front? Do you remember?
It had a gold front.
So it was the JMP1.
Okay.
Yeah. That was their biggest.
That's
they still
right.
make that. They still
and then
make
I had the Marshall power amp too. I had that in there, and then I had oh gosh, what was the other? I had a Carbon power amp in there too,
Oh, cool.
which sounded really nice. It was a tube
Nice and
power amp,
clean.
and that sounded really good. So was the Marshall as well. It was all tube. And then I'm trying to think of what other gear I had in there. Oh boy, this is really
You were playing Charvel's at that time, right?
Oh yeah. And,
Now, how
it was
did you
Charvel,
get that
but then-
endorsement?
But then Wayne Charvel actually split from Grover.
Right, it
Grover
was
Jackson,
Grover at the time.
And Wayne moved to Texas, and he was having a lot of his guitars made in, I think it was Japan or South Korea at the time. And they asked which one I wanted to go with, and I said I wanted to stay with Grover because Grover stayed in San Dimas, California.
Mhm.
And so that way I could go down and I could pick out the wood and everything and go over the specs and everything with Grover himself.
Yeah.
And by that time, me and Grover had become pretty good friends. And so, it was
Did
really
you know
cool.
him already, or were you set up by the company, or how'd you meet Grover Jackson?
They contacted me. They wanted me to endorse them. So
Nice.
I said, hey, of course.
And you went down, and they just made you a couple of cool guitars. You picked out the specs, and
Yep.
And what about this? Because this is one of the most famous photographs of the '80s. This famous ad. You're right next to Spacey T.
Oh, yeah.
in the front row, and you got Steve Vai behind you, and Vinnie Vincent, and Mark
Uh-huh.
Ferrari. Basically, who was who
Right.
back then in '80s shred artists.
Yeah.
I always
those were
love
all
that
the
picture.
Popular guitarists, from all the popular bands in LA at the time, and that was a great photo shoot. I remember Glenn LaFerman was a photographer, and because we'd worked with him quite a bit, and we did it at this warehouse in LA, and the power went out, so they had to call Con Edison because there were so many lights to get everybody lit up. I mean, it was just like ridiculous in there. But it blew out the power, and they couldn't get it back on, and so they had to call up Con Edison. And during that time, Steve Vai and I started talking. We had met each other a couple of times before, but we started talking because he knew that I was a graduate from the Guitar Institute, and he was a graduate from Berklee School of Music. So we we knew that each other was knew our theory really well, and so we started talking away, and he started showing me a couple of things, and I showed him a couple of things, and then on his next album, I noticed that he was kind of using one of the things that I showed him, and I went, "That's great! What a nice compliment!" And of course, I used a couple of his ideas as well. So
Sure.
Yeah. But it was really cool. There was nice camaraderie going on there. We're just like guitar players, and even though we had made it, we were still so interested in learning.
Yeah, you were geeking out over stuff.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's a great thing.
Were you surprised that Vinnie Vincent actually showed up? Or
Yeah.
Okay, he's kind of known for that no-show appearance. So
that leads to
I
Jim
didn't know that about
Nicholas's.
it, but yeah, he was there, and boy, it was a very long photo shoot. It was about 10 hours.
wow,
Oh wow.
good results,
because
man.
of the way.
That's a
Con
classic photograph that'll never be duplicated.
No,
That's right. Exactly.
So our friend Jim Nicholas says, any Vinnie Vincent stories on that photo shoot? Any crazy Vinnie stories?
No, I think that he was mainly standing outside, during that whole thing when Con Edison came out to fix up everything. But I remember talking to him. He was just a really nice guy, kind of laid back. And I had met him a couple of times previously as well. In fact, I had met pretty much everybody that was in there,
Yeah.
But
At that
I'm
time,
not
sure.
the one, I was so busy. I'm not the one to really hang out in LA with other musicians because we were constantly on tour or in the studio or making videos, so we really didn't have time to hang out.
And what was it like shooting that first music video? Because this is like broken ground now to be on MTV. It's such a new medium. What was it like shooting that first video? Like, what were you guys like thinking about that?
It was tedious, and it was because it was a 16-hour day.
Wow.
We had to get up and come back in the next day to do some more shooting. But it was like a 16-hour day and then a 12-hour day the next day, and we were burned out. You had to do so many takes, and getting the lighting right. Ole Sassoon, the guy who directed it, was still pretty new. He had worked on different films before, but this was his first experience doing a music video. In fact, for a lot of directors, it was their first experience doing a music video.
It's a new medium, brand new medium.
They were still in the experimental stage. They weren't sure exactly what they were doing. So it took quite a while. We had to do a lot of takes and everything. But, the final product, I thought, wow, that's really cool. And it got heavy rotation on MTV. I was surprised at how many times they played it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And every time you turned it on, it was on there,
Yep. And I watched it. I watched it every time it was on.
Yeah. And then send her to me. Send her to me. Also had a very cool video with the women, the mail order women.
Yeah.
That you build
that
yourself.
Was to me. Yeah.
That's right. That was fun. A big crate comes up. They wheel it to the band, and out pop these robot women, these mail order women that they order from catalogs.
Yep.
Including Kenny. Kenny had one that was like a cyborg. The girl,
exactly.
the girl on the covers. By the way, speaking of the album covers, did you guys choose the artwork of the metallic robot, like the hand and the Japanese artwork for the robot woman? And did you guys chose that yourself?
That, and then and we thought it was different enough. The artist that we had doing it thought it was different enough from the Japanese artist that was known for the robotic women, and but the Japanese artist saw it and he sued us and he won. It was just a $25,000 payoff, but we paid it, and then from that point on we were able to use it. But the artist that we hired to actually do it copied him a little bit too closely. So
I see that.
And I didn't even know that whole thing was taking place until we got the bill for $25,000. So,
and then your second tour. So you recorded your album. You're doing videos. Then your second tour was right out of the gate with Aerosmith, right?
Yeah.
Now, give me a memory from being with Aerosmith. What was that like?
Well, they had just gotten out of rehab, and because of the fact that
which time?
The year of 85.
Okay.
So. So there were restrictions on that. We had to stay on the other side of town from wherever they were staying. And there was no beer or anything allowed on our tour bus even.
Wow.
So, or backstage. So we basically had to wait till we got back to the hotel room for anybody to have a beer or anything, because they had very strict regulations. Because
It's a lot of money. It's a business. It's a
yeah,
business.
they were, but they put promoters, on their previous tour, they put these promoters in a really bad situation when Steven Tyler or Joe Perry couldn't show up to the show. They were too wasted, and so it was understandable. And Joe Perry was the weak one. Steven Tyler was doing great. I talked to him all the time, and he said, it's like the first thing that I think about when I wake up, being heroin, of course, and it's the last thing I think about before I fall asleep, and so I thought, God, what a sad thing, being so dependent on something like that, and that it basically consumes all your thoughts, but Joe Perry kept on coming up to us saying, you guys got a bump, he wanted cocaine, and we said, no, Joe, we don't have any, we get fired, if that was to happen. But he always asked anyway. He asked our crew and everything, can you give me some? Can you give me some? And so Joe was being the weak one. Steven was being very, very strong.
Wow.
Nice. And they, from what I'm understanding, you did some touring with a bunch of other bands. I'll rattle off a couple just for the list. Van Halen, Aerosmith, Heart, Kiss, Dio, Motley Crue, Whitesnake, and Bryan Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How did Bryan Adams fit in there?
Bryan Adams actually heard our stuff, and he really loved the band. And he asked if, even though it was almost like a completely different genre, but he wanted us to open up for him. And so we decided to go out. It was kind of like we were filling in a few gigs until I think we started with Heart. And the Heart, and then I think it was Motley Crue after that. I'm not sure where Dio came into play, but anyway, so we went out and did some shows with Bryan Adams, and it was funny. On the last night that we played with Bryan Adams, he wanted us to come up and sing "Cuts Like a Knife" with him. So
Nice.
we put up a microphone, and we all gathered around the microphone, and Bryan Adams came up to our microphone to sing the chorus with us, and he just sprayed us with his spit, because when you watch him sing, he's just spitting the whole time, so spit out of our eyes, while he's singing with us, he's opposite side of us, and it was just the funniest thing, because we're all going, wiping the spit off of us, and Bryan Adams just like, he's so into it, the veins are popping out of his forehead and his neck and everything, and
you should have sang the song. Sang the song "It Spits Like a Snake."
Got to tell you, he's one of the best. He's one of the best singers and artists to come out of that time.
Oh, absolutely. And just what a sweetheart of a guy. He was really bummed to see us go, because we had a really good time with him, but we had other, options that we had to fill. So, different things that we had to do. So anyway, I think the next one might have been Dio after that. And then
did you already know Ronnie James Dio, with his work with Sabbath and Rainbow and Elf, and he had a laundry list there.
I had never met him until we were actually rehearsed. We were rehearsing at Nate's in North Hollywood, which is still there, by the way. And Dio was rehearsing there, and I met him a couple of times, and he just really cool, down to earth guy, just really great. And
he was with Vivian Campbell then, right?
Yes. It
okay.
Was, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And anyway, when we were touring with him, I remember we were walking backstage. Me and the keyboard player from Autograph, we were walking backstage, and they had one of those short little doors that you push the chairs into. And I pointed at it and I said, "Look, that must be Dio's door, because he's so short." And I hear this laughing behind me, and I turn around and it's Ronnie, and I go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Ronnie." And he came up to me and he gave me a big hug. He says, "No, that was really funny, Steve. That was great."
When you say he came up to you, did he use a step stool or no? That's terrible.
Yeah.
No, Ronnie's great though. Ronnie's like a legend. So
yeah.
So you had fun with
totally
them.
Totally cool. I love being around him. He was just constantly making jokes.
Give me impressions of, just fast impressions. What was it like being with Heart?
Oh, they were very cool, very pro. They got on stage and they were just impeccable every night. Ann's voice was just like, wow, spot on. You know, I mean, I was really impressed with them night after night. Her voice would never give out, and she was belting it out every single night, you know. And,
Oh, yeah.
But they were just such a tight band. Now, the interesting thing is I knew them from Seattle back when I was in Silverlode. Or actually, it was before Silverlode. I had met them at a place called My Place Tavern where they performed. And it's just the weirdest thing. So I had met them actually a couple of times, and I reminded them of that when you know, we met again, when we met on that tour again, and they said, "Oh yeah, you're Steve. You're Steve. You played with Russ Taylor. You played with Silverlode, you know." And I go, "Yes, that's me." You know. And so they thought, "Oh, that's really cool," you know. And so that was just a great time. It was like
Nice. So they remembered you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through a couple more, but real quick, we gotta plug a sponsor real quick. Dave, what do
Okay,
you got?
no problem.
Absolutely. So, Jody Head straps. If you're looking for a nice strap for your guitar, any high end, she has affordable stuff as well. Check out jodyhead.com. That the website is great. She's a great person and she's very talented. This, like a strap like this, is a nice piece of leather with real snake skin on it. It's really heavy duty, good stuff. Check out Jody Head straps. Thank you.
That's a nice thick strap. That'll keep a guitar from neck
It's-
diving on you.
Yeah,
This is,
absolutely.
I would say this is 2.5 inches wide or so, maybe 3. And it feels, doesn't feel like a big strap. It just feels really comfortable. And this guitar is not very light. It's maybe 8 pounds. So I don't feel like I have it on me. It just
That's a
feels
beautiful
great.
strap.
On a whim, she sent me this and just to match this guitar, she's like, "Dave, you need this strap for this guitar." So okay, I'll take it. You know?
Dave doesn't even realize he wears it into the showers sometimes. It's that light and comfortable that
That's
he doesn't
right.
even know it's there. He's you know, Desiree's there, and she's like, "Well, honey, take that off before you go in there."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that's nice, great.
Yeah, but check it out, Jody Head straps.
Cool,
JodyHead.com.
thank you, Jody.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you broke up. One more time.
JodyHead.com. That's all I said.
There you go. Going back to tours, Steve, give me your impression. You guys went out with Kiss. What lineup of Kiss were you out with?
With Kiss? No, we never toured with Kiss.
No, I have notes that you went down, that you toured with Kiss at one point. No.
No. Actually, the story with Kiss was that Paul Stanley, after we signed with RCA, the day we actually signed, you know, with and made it official, was in LA. You know, it was with Paul Atkinson, and you know, we all officially signed and took pictures and everything that day. And then I went home, and at about 1:00 in the morning, I got this phone call, and I answered it, and they said, "Is this Steve Lynch?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, this is Paul Stanley from Kiss." And I went, "Yeah, right." And I hung up. And so he called back, and I could tell it was long distance because it was kind of crackling, and he was in New York. And he said, "No, this really is Paul Stanley. I got your number from Mike Marty from Guitar Player Magazine." And so I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry I hung up on you." And he said, "Oh, no worries." And he said, "Listen, I heard your demo that you did, years ago. And it was actually that 3-song demo that I did, that I'd spoken about earlier. And he loved it. He thought I was a guitar player that didn't sound like anybody else. And he wanted me in the band. I mean, basically, they had already talked about it, and they said that they wanted me, you know, that I didn't have to audition. And they said, "Look, we're going to start you off at $375,000 a year." And I went, "Oh, that's nice," you know. But I said, "Unfortunately, I just signed a 3-album deal with RCA earlier today." And he said, well, look, you can get out of that. You know, you can join Kiss. And I said, "Actually, no, I don't want to get out of it. You know, this is my band and this is my thing." You know, because I looked at it like, well, if I do the Kiss thing, I'm just going to be a hired gun. And I didn't want to do that, even though I would have done it, you know, if I wouldn't have been in the band. But I felt my commitment. I just signed my name to a 3-album deal with a major record company, and I didn't want to bail from him. So I flat out turned him down, and he got pissed off about it.
This was at the time they were replacing Mark St. John when he had the hand problem?
That's correct.
So basically the gig that eventually Bruce Kulick got into.
Yeah, it was Vinnie Vincent that I think they got, and then
they got Vinny to replace Ace. Then they got Mark St. John. And probably right about the time, if they were looking at your demo and around when you got signed, that was probably right after Mark St. John had hand issues and had to bow out. So they were looking for replacement. You would have been great in that. I think you would have been great in that.
Yeah, I probably would have, and I would have been making good money. But but I kind of wanted to do the thing with Autograph because.
Well, yeah, it's your band. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
It's my band. I'm not just a paid sideman.
Which you would have been in that incarnation of Kiss.
Yes, I would have.
Because it was Paul and Gene and whoever they hired.
And you still would have had to put makeup on at the time, wouldn't you?
No, that was the non-makeup period.
Just after makeup?
And after that, actually, at a point around the late 90s when they did the reunion tour, you actually would have, like Bruce, had to been sidelined for a while. And then when they got Ace and Peter back. So Autograph was definitely the right move. I'm glad you did that. Still an interesting thought and a great story. Tell me about touring with Motley Crue and Whitesnake.
The Motley Crue tour, I don't remember.
That you had a good time. It was a great tour.
No, I remember it was just way over the top. I mean, it was way over the top.
Puts the D in debauchery.
A lot of debauchery, a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, and a lot of women, and just everything that goes along with that style of life.
What was like the craziest thing you saw that you remember?
Probably can't say that on here.
Oh God, there were so many.
What one that's lightly censored?
Well, let's see. There was, the time when me and Tommy just really tied one on. In fact, I traveled the whole time on their tour bus, and Tommy and I were just doing everything possible, and we were just totally wasted.
Mayhem.
And anyway, he had to go play, the next night as well as I did. We opened up for him, and I was sick on stage. I ran around back on my amps, and I threw up and everything while I was still playing. And then Tommy, when they played their set, Tommy went up, and that's when he had that drum set that went up over the crowd, and he was upside down.
Yeah, I remember
that. I asked Tommy, I said, "Are you going to be able to make this?" And he goes, "Dude, I don't think I feel like I'm going to throw up." And so sure enough, he got up there. And he started puking, and all these people down below.
Yeah, people are thinking, "Hey, look, he's throwing drums. He's throwing drumsticks."
That's
just something else.
Man. And so we were always riding on each other's tour bus. Now, one of the things is that I remember one of the nights we were so wasted. The bathroom on our bus was to the when you're walking towards the front of the bus, it's to the left, and their bathroom was to the right as you're walking towards the front of the bus. And so I was on their bus. I thought I was on our bus, but anyway, I opened up the closet door. I thought I was in the bath, and I peed on one of the crew members' brand new tennis shoes. I had to buy him a new pair of tennis shoes the next day. And one thing about the Aerosmith tour. Like towards the end of the tour, we there was this girl that got on our tour bus, and she looked like she was homeless. She didn't look like in good shape, and she was messed up on more than alcohol. It was definitely she was on. It looked like she was on some kind of hallucinogenic or something, but she was totally messed up. And Mojo, our bus driver, he just started driving, and this woman didn't smell very well. She just she reeked. To be kind about it, she absolutely reeked. And so Mojo, our bus driver, we were getting on the freeway, and he says, "What the hell was that smell?" And he turned around, and we all pointed at her because we didn't know who she was.
That's our new stage manager.
And so he pulls over on the side of the freeway, and he says, "Get the hell off my tour bus," And so she does, and she's standing there on the side of the freeway. This is in Providence, Rhode Island, and it's snowing out, and everything. And as we're driving away, she's raising up her middle fingers and going, "F you, Aerosmith." She thought she was on Aerosmith's tour bus. That's how messed up she was. So
nice. What you don't realize is Tommy actually got on the wrong bus too, and he also thought the bathroom was on the other side. He actually left one on the lap of the bus driver. So
really? I didn't
but you never know. You never know.
You never know. Yeah.
One more. Whitesnake. Which incarnation were you with? The 1987 lineup, the big one.
It was Adrian and Rudy. And,
okay. And Vivian Campbell.
We only did some shows. They were outdoor shows. Same thing with ZZ Top, and same thing with the Scorpions. We just did some outdoor shows with them. That's all. But it wasn't like a full tour.
Nice.
So.
Who was your favorite? Who was your favorite to tour with?
I would have to say probably Motley Crue, because they just gave us everything, like a lot of bands put restrictions on the opening act. But with Motley Crue and Heart, same way, same thing. They just treated us really well. But they said you can have full PA, you can have full lights, whatever you want to use. And they catered to us. So it was really cool.
And was there any band that you were like itching to get on the tour that you just couldn't, connect with, that you really wanted to open with and tour with?
Well, that would be Led Zeppelin, but they weren't around.
Zeppelin and Floyd, yeah.
Hey, Steve, our friend Chat Farewell just messaged me a photo that he took of you in 1986. It's uncirculated. Okay. I'm going to show it to you, and at the end of the show, I'm going to send this to you. Okay. But I want to show this to the people, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Let's see if I can get this out there.
Oh, wow. Very
cool.
Yeah.
So I'll send that to you later. That's you in 1986, and he was in maybe the front or second row and took that picture of you.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so we've talked about touring. Let's talk about your other two albums. You did That's the Stuff. Right out, they got you right back in the studio.
Yeah.
Because I know back then they really wanted to get you back on the radio with single by single by single by single. And then they got you in for Loud and Clear, which, to my understanding, they didn't really back you up on. And yet it's probably one of your best albums. I can count singles that should have been really isolated on there. If you had better support, I really think that would have been a tremendous album for you guys.
That was our best album.
I think so.
The writing we had really matured with our writing. On the second album, we went in and we again on the second album, we did that in 31 days or 30 days, including the mixing and mastering. And we wrote most of that stuff while we were on the road, because we were touring all the time. So we just came back into LA. We flew into LA and we just did it, and went right back out. And then on the third album, that's when we got to work with Andy Johns again. He was producing that and engineering it. And man, he did a hell of a job. I mean, and like I said, we were all at our peak writing wise at that point. And I was really, let down that RCA didn't put a lot into it. But what happened was this: Bob Summers, who's the president of RCA, he died of AIDS. Okay, remember AIDS?
Yeah. Not personally, but yeah.
And so Bob Buziak came in and took over, and they fired like 50% of the staff in the New York offices. And they brought in all these little yuppie guys that didn't know how to market anything. They were just out of college, and they were green behind the ears. They didn't know what they were doing at all. We were actually telling
which one
them
of
how
you
to market albums.
Which one of you is Pink?
Was Pink?
You remember Pink Floyd, The Wall? They're like, which one is Pink? That's in the corporate boardroom. Right. Nice to meet you, boys. Which one is Pink?
Yeah. But it was that kind of a scenario. They didn't know who we were. They didn't know what kind of success we'd already had. But it wasn't only us. It was also Mr. Mister. Remember them?
Sure.
I mean, their first album sold 4 million. Their second one didn't go gold. It eventually went gold, but at that point, it wasn't even going gold. It was also the Pointer Sisters. It was also Kenny Rogers, and it was also the Eurythmics. All of those bands suffered at the fate of that big change at RCA. And everybody was very, very upset with them, because in their whole career, they hadn't sold less albums than during that time. And that's a lot of big name people. The Eurythmics, Mr.
Sure.
Lister, the Pointer Sisters, and Kenny Rogers. I mean, come on, that's huge.
And then you guys also had you had other material for another album, which became Missing Pieces. But
Right.
you recorded that at the end of the '80s, right before you guys broke up, right?
Right. Our deal with RCA was up at that point. We had done all 3 albums and everything, and so we were actually doing demos because we were going to sign a 3-album deal with Epic Records. But then everything changed with this thing called grunge music from Seattle.
Yeah, well, that was
And
that was 91 though. That was 91. You guys broke up at the end of '89, right after the Loud and Clear album, which again should have been much bigger. You had material for Missing Pieces that you recorded right about the breakup time, but it got released as Missing Pieces in '97, like 10 years later, which was also terrific material. Angel in Black, for instance, that was actually a hit for a band, Bangalore Choir, that got it from you guys and re-recorded it.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was, and this is what I'm saying. If they would have given you more support, I think you would have kept going a little better. But again, corporate.
We were done with RCA at that point. But if we would have signed with Epic, then that song would have been with Epic Records. You see, but that whole thing did fall apart. And what was going on? It was there was this this thing coming out of Seattle. And it was the grunge thing. That was '89 actually when it first started to
Appear.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And so,
91 Nirvana's Nevermind came out and just destroyed everything. You guys actually got out right in time, but they could have probably given you that more support and raised you up there to be there.
Exactly.
But at that point you guys broke up. Mm-hmm. And you all went separate ways. During that time, you started doing clinics.
Yes.
You started doing a lot of clinics, 325 clinics, I'm counting, in 20 different countries.
Correct, including all the states except for Maine and Alaska. I did clinics in. So,
and I've always compared you in that way to Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne's early guitarist, the great Randy Rhoads, in that you're a virtuoso. You're call it what you will. You're a guitar god, whether you like the title or not.
Yeah, guitar hero. Guitar hero.
Legendary guitar hero, and you're also a teacher. And you have just as much teaching passion as you do innovating and making music, just like Randy Rhoads did. He also was a known love of sharing his gift, just like you do.
Yes,
I'd love to do the clinics and the videos you've done. 3 books, The Right Touch 1, 2, and 3, showing your tapping technique. Tell us about these clinics.
Oh, it was incredible because I got to see so much of the world, and I wasn't touring with the band, so there weren't all these other distractions, even though I did a lot of clinics. I did 4 or 5 a week, plus all the traveling to all these places in Europe and South America and Mexico and New Zealand and Australia, and plus all the states. But the thing is we drove to most of the clinics throughout Europe, so I got to see these really cool castles in the southern part of Germany and Bavaria, and then I traveled to these really cool towns in Amsterdam, Niederdam, Rotterdam, all those damn cities in Holland.
Damn those cities!
All those damn cities.
Yeah, and so and then we drove from there down into Belgium and everything, and then we. I did a bunch in England and up in Scotland. And in Scotland, I couldn't understand anybody. I was at this one clinic where I was signing posters, which were promotion for the event. And this guy came up, and I asked him what his name was because I was putting everybody's name on it. He said, "Richard." And I said, "What?"
That's what I was just about to say. What?
And I said, I don't understand what you're saying. He goes, "Richard." And I went, "Okay, spell it for me."
Was it the Swedish chef from the Muppets?
Yeah.
Not a big fan of you. I'm going to turn open the radio.
But no, his name was Richard.
Oh.
And
oh, he didn't want to say Dick. He was just Richard.
R-I-C-H or I-R-I-C-H-A-R-T. Richard.
Richard.
And I go, okay, Richard. Okay, I got it.
Oh, that's
Richard.
great.
But,
So that
fantastic.
so
it was so cool being able to see all these things from all these places from a car, and it was just amazing. And in France, of course, the audiences were the most rudest, of course. In fact, I even quit the clinic early. I walked out on
really.
Yeah, there was some guy there that was just saying something in French and cracking everybody up, and I
Sign my baguette.
Yeah. So so I said, if that happens, I told the interpreter, if it happens, excuse me, one more time, then I was actually going to get up and walk out. And sure enough, about 10 minutes later, he did it again. And so I just got up and I said, clinic's over, and put my guitar away and walked off.
And how many? Go ahead.
It was the only time out of all the clinics that happened, and that was in Paris. And so anyway, but in Italy, it was great. We were driving through the Italian Alps and the northern part of Italy, in Florence and Pisa and everything, and it was just incredible time. And I went and did a clinic in Australia. I flew from LA, or actually I did 30 clinics there in 30 days, including New Zealand. We did.
It's like a tour.
What's that? Oh yeah,
it's like a tour.
Absolutely. Including New Zealand. I did Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch in New Zealand, and Rotorua. And so we did 4 clinics in New Zealand. But when I flew into Sydney from LA, I thought, oh, great. It was a 16-hour flight. And I thought, oh, great. I can't wait to get into bed. I'm so fried. And then as soon as I get out there and I meet the guys that are picking me up, the whole transportation service and everything, they said, so are you ready? And I said, ready for what? The hotel? And I said, yeah. And they go, no, you've got a clinic in 2 hours. and I said, no. And they said, yeah, it's tomorrow for you because you crossed the international date line. And I went, oh, shit. I didn't think of that, but yeah, I had to do a clinic, and I was so fried. And then it didn't stop from there. We went from Melbourne, and then we went up to Brisbane, and then Newcastle, and Canberra, and then we went over to Perth, flew over to the west side, and then Adelaide and Whyalla and Melbourne and everything, and it was just boom, 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 one after the next. It was just absolutely great.
I just know they have so much respect for you for your teaching ability as much as your music ability. You're very well known for that. For those instructional, for those clinics, for your books, for the videos you've done, it's a big feather in your cap. It really is.
What it did was, I think it really helped out sales, because our sales started going up with with all 3 albums, and it was cool because going there, I didn't, being in the States all the time, we never got to tour Europe in autograph. In fact, RCA wouldn't pay for us to go to Japan either, even though we went gold in Japan and we went gold in Canada. We played Canada, of course, but they wouldn't pay us for us to go to Europe, and so, which was really disappointing, because I found out doing clinics there that we had sold a boatload of albums, and because everybody was coming up, and I was signing albums for like 2 hours after the clinic, and I thought, wow, we sold a lot of records here, and so I was just disappointed that we never got to play there. We would have sold a lot more albums, but we'd sold a heck of a lot anyway. So that's good.
Cool.
That's great. And then you did that for how many years?
I did it for just a couple of years. I started in 1989 because the band wasn't really touring. This is when we were doing demos for Epic Records. This is when we were doing those demos that ended up being on the Missing Pieces album. And so I would go out and do a few here and there, but it really hit in 1990 and 91, and that's where I was really hitting it hard. I would be gone for like 3 months at a time.
And then Missing Pieces came out, and then your solo album came out. You did a solo called Network 23 in 2004. That was tremendous album.
That's actually my favorite album.
It's a great album.
It was me, but it was like I didn't really want to be in another band. I thought, you know what, I want to do something because I hear something in my head, and that's why I ended up writing and most all the material on there. Scott Gilman, the vocalist, wrote some of the lyrics and everything, and he did an amazing job on it. But I played, guitar. I played bass. I programmed a lot of the drum stuff before I actually had, Chris Frazier, who played with Steve Vai, and now he's with Foreigner. Mm-hmm. And Mike Mangini came in, the drummer from now he's with Dream Theater, and mm-hmm. he also played with Steve Vai. And so I had both of those guys come in into the studio and lay down the real drum tracks. But then I played also all the keyboards on it, and and produced the whole thing. And so. And arranged all the parts and everything, and had hands-on in the mixing and all that. So I looked at it as a labor of love. I put a lot of time into this. Actually, that album was completed in '95, but I couldn't release it for 10 years.
Why was
the
that?
record company went bankrupt. That I was with. It was Sasapa Records, and they had distribution through SEMA, which was Capital EMI Manhattan. And so great distribution deal, but they went bankrupt. They spent too much money. And so I actually took the masters out of the studio and had to finish them at Fox Run Studios in LA and Sound City. And then I eventually took the masters to Riverside Studios in Fort Lauderdale, because me and my girlfriend, after I came back from the clinics, and that was '92 actually, and my girlfriend at the time, I said, look, there's no reason to be in LA anymore. Well, let's go to Florida, because we had been there before together when I was doing clinics, and she flew with me one time to Florida, and we loved it. We absolutely loved it there, and that's where I'm living again now. We decided, what, let's pack up and get out of here. And so we did. We had the truck packed up, and I had my car put on the back of a trailer. And we started driving that day, again, driving straight from LA all the way down to Fort Lauderdale. And the funny thing is when we got to Phoenix, we were able to, we were in the cab of the truck, and we thought, well, I said, turn on radio. We're going to be able to probably pick up some Phoenix stations. And they came on, and it was all news, and they were saying that the riots are breaking out. It's all over the South Central Los Angeles and everything. It was the day of the Rodney King riots, and we had left that day. Just literally 4 or 5 hours before the riots.
Talk about timing.
That's incredible.
Yeah. You have these incredible crossroads of timing.
What's that?
You have these incredible crossroads of timing from David Lee Roth, you're jogging with Kenny, to you missing this, the riots just like this. It's like you have incredible luck with that.
Absolutely.
Real quick on time constraints, are you free to go a little bit over, because we do have a bunch of stuff to still go over. Do you have a little extra? Okay, I just want to make sure if you need a drink or a bathroom break, please just
I got a little bit
more. All right, so while we're good with discussing that, let me just get another sponsor spot out of the way.
Okay.
Check out the Floyd on this. All the upgrades, the beautiful titanium, all the screws, the titanium, the
FU tone,
the
baby.
big brass block on it. That's Adam Reaver at fu-tone.com. Check it out. It really, if you don't have any of this stuff on your Floyd Rose or your locking tremolo, check it out, because it really will make your guitar more vibrant, more resonant. It works. It absolutely works. And I have these on, I'd say 90% of my Floyd Rose guitars, because sometimes it doesn't need it. Most of the time it does. And when you have it on your guitar, it's amazing. It's amazing. FU-tone. Check it out.
I have an FU tone soloist that's just tricked out, and oh my God, what a difference those parts make.
Mm-hmm. I've got to talk to Adam about this, because I'm very adamant. I should say that. Okay.
See what you did there. No, Adam will hook you up. You'll love his stuff.
Yeah,
those upgrades are incredible.
Like I said, I spoke to him a little bit before, and he was like, "Yeah, me and him spoke. Just if you could just tell him I said hello." So Adam does say hello.
Okay.
And I'll give you his information. You can call him up and say hello.
Steve, you're friends with Mark Slaughter, right?
Yeah.
Ask him. Mark had a bunch of stuff upgraded by Adam and loves it. Just
Great.
really.
Okay.
Yeah, talk to him too, because he'll give you the nod. Trust me
Yeah,
on
we
that.
did a lot of shows with Mark.
Great
He's
guy.
one of the nicest guys, you know.
Mark and Dana both terrific guys.
He could go on talking about gear forever. I mean, I eventually had to leave the room, you know.
Right, we all, you know what? We all geek out over gear. We all do.
Yeah.
You know, do you when you go on tour or you go on these clinics, do you find yourself in cities and like looking for those used guitar shops and looking for gear and, you know, pawn shops? And I mean, do you go on that hunt like the rest of us do?
Yes, I have. You know, especially in New York. You know, I always when I went to New York, we'd go to that clothing store called Trash and Vaudeville, and then I'd go off and I'd start looking at places like Sam Ash and stuff for what guitars they had there, and some of the more smaller shops as well. And you know, a couple of places, you know, like you're in outside of some place like Charlotte, North Carolina, and there's a mom and pop's place that actually has some pretty cool guitars in there. I ran into a 1957 Strat that this guy was selling, but you know, this was back in probably '86, and the thing
when they were cheap.
Had never been played. You know,
when they were just used guitars back then, they weren't vintage.
And but he was asking a bit too much for it, so I turned it down. But man, the thing played and sounded incredible. Right now, I wish that I would have bought it, because to think of what the value would be on that right now.
Was it a Sunburst?
Yes, it was a Sunburst one. Yes.
What year was it?
57.
Yeah, that's like a $60,000 guitar.
Easily.
Yeah.
Especially in the condition this was in.
Yeah. Oh, if it's in with tags, $100,000 easy.
Back in the late '80s, I remember 48th Street, you know, in New York City, all the guitar shops, you know, you had Manny's and Sam Ash and, you know, all the 48th Street Custom, and they all had all these Les Pauls and Strats that nobody wanted back in the day. I remember looking at a row of pre-CBS Strats, and it was like 2,000, 1,800, you know, for like a 62, 63 Strat. And now these are like $25,000, $30,000 guitars. I'm like,
That's right. I remember paying $4,000. I had a 1960 rosewood fretboard, beautiful. It turned two-tone Sunburst. It was three-tone. The aniline died, just left, but.
I got a Les Paul.
Me too.
What year, Paul?
It's right here. Let me grab it.
Yeah. What year, Paul?
I love when guitars are close by.
Oh,
Now,
God.
Look at the finish on that.
Yeah.
What year is that?
It's actually only about 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's beautiful. Top, man. Look at the flame on that thing.
The guy had the custom shop at Gibson put on this wood binding around it.
Oh my God!
And then he's got these pickups that are Gary Moore. Pickups.
Yeah, sure, the Gary Moore pickup.
Sure.
And this guitar plays incredibly. It's a standard, but it actually it prices out like at about $6,000 because of all the work he had done to it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
You know, so yeah, it's a very, very nice guitar, and he gave it to me. He actually passed away a couple of years ago, so he sent it to me before he passed away. Wow. He sent me this one, and then he sent me another one, this Epiphone that used to like the John Lennon model, the blonde.
Oh yeah, the Casino.
Okay, sure.
But
those are incredible.
He had it redone, and I got to show you what he did to it.
Yeah, the John Lennon Epiphone Casino, I think was made in America as a custom shop piece.
Look at this.
Oh, look at that thing.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Jesus. And you're a huge Beatles fan. You're a big Beatles fan, right?
Oh yeah.
I think we all are. Everybody somewhere was influenced by the Beatles.
Absolutely. So they're the ones that initially got me interested in music. You know, my mom listened to Elvis Presley, and my dad was a big country guy. I grew up on Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard and Charlie Pride, and I love that old country music, and I love Elvis, of course. But when the Beatles came out, that's when I went, this is what I have to do. So let me put this one back real quick.
You and everyone else.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff.
Okay, so we talked about Network 23.
Uh-huh.
Now let's go a little further out. There's somewhere around that time there was some mini version of Autograph. Was it just Plunkett and like 4 other guys?
Yeah, that
Were you asked to join that at all, or anyone else?
yeah, there was talk about it, but I was into doing my own thing, and the thing is that Plunkett already had all the music written, so I went, you know what, I'm just going to be basically playing in your solo group,
Yeah.
because the material's already written, because we were writing some cool stuff together when we were doing the missing pieces stuff,
Great
What I'm
album.
Gone and all that, and Angel in Black and Heart Attack and all that, and so we were writing some really good material, but he had all the material written, so I just wasn't interested in doing it. I was at that time I was already writing for the Network 23, or I had already written and done the Network 23 album and was writing for another one. It just kind of it kind of set me back financially because I put 50 grand into finishing the album, like when I moved down to Florida, and so we had talked about it. I played on a couple of songs on Steve Plunkett's solo album, but I didn't feel it was Autograph.
It wasn't.
And so I just decided, no, it's basically just Steve's solo album. It's not really Autograph. So
Yeah, and then years later, in 2016, Steve, Plunkett, Randy Rand, and Kenny Richards got together. Oh, I'm sorry, not Steve. You, Randy, and Kenny got together for an Autograph reunion, like around 2013.
Right.
And you asked Steve at the time, do you want to, join on with us? And he was already very deep. For those that don't know in the audience, he was already doing like TV and movie soundtracks. Right. And that's where he branched off to after Autograph.
Right. And he said, my voice can't handle a tour. He said, I've lost my voice. And, by that time he was, around 60 years old, so that happens, of course.
Sure.
What do you even do about it,
Of course.
And so
or you
I
can
felt
do
bad about it. I really wanted that original voice back, with the project, but it just didn't work out that way. So Kenny got referred to Simon, who ended up being the singer, through Larry Moran, the guy that does
Simon Daniels of Jailhouse, for those that don't know, stepped in as the frontman of that Autograph reunion in 2013.
Right.
And you guys started releasing singles about 2015, 2014, 15, one by one.
The EP, I think that was
2016. 2016, you released Louder, which was the four new songs and a live version of Turn Up the Radio. It was a great EP.
Yeah.
And then you went to work for what came out in 2017, the full album, Get Off Your Ass.
Right.
And then you guys were like in strength. I mean, that was just total kick-ass album. Even the music video was tremendous for that.
Yeah, that one. It was a bit heavier than the original Autograph. We didn't have keys in it and everything.
Right.
I did want keys in it, after a while. At first I thought, no, we'll do it the same way that the last version of Autograph did it, and that was without keys, without Steve Isham. And then, I thought we'd carry on that same tradition with this one. But I kind of missed the keys, I really did.
I like the sound you guys have with keys. I like the sound you guys have with keys.
Yeah, it lets you as the guitar player breathe a little bit.
It really does. It actually makes me play more melodic. I get out of that pentatonic, fix and where you kind of get fixated on that because basically with two guitars, you're kind of almost pigeonholed into that. But when you have the keyboards, all of a sudden it opens up this whole different melodic flavor that you can use.
Yeah.
And so. But the album came out great, and it did
albums.
well. I mean, it got Get Off Your Ass got a lot of radio play, and then the second video, which I really liked, we filmed out in the desert, out right by Apache Junction, the Superstition Mountains in Arizona, and that that video turned out to be really good as well. I thought both videos.
It's a great album. It's a really good album.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it still stands up even in a time when guitar rock isn't the main genre, and you don't have a lot of MTV anymore. Now it's more YouTube and a lot of word of mouth and stuff, and people are downloading songs. You did it very smart with the EP because you started releasing singles one by one by one. Then you came out with the EP.
Yes.
And then you came out with the full album of Get Off Your Ass. So I think you guys did that really well. And both really good product. I mean, really strong. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Simon was a great fit for the Frontman. And how did he fit in with you guys? Because you guys, the rest of you guys all came up together, and Simon was brand new in that. So like, how did that gel together? Because the product is terrific. So I'm just wondering behind the scenes.
It gelled right away. I mean, Simon walked in and he kicked butt right off to the first rehearsal, And then, unfortunately, Kenny had a very serious drug problem, and and that's very unfortunate because he ended up getting killed over it. But what happened was the first rehearsal. I went down and I could tell Kenny was a little bit out of sorts, but I didn't think anything of it because he's, a bit of an eccentric character anyway.
Sure. Was he the most partier of the band? Like who was the wildest partier of the band? Was it Kenny? Because he always seemed very energetic and gung ho.
I would say Kenny was, probably. It was probably Kenny. But all of us were over the top. There's no doubt about that. In fact, after the Motley Crue tour, because of the fact that there were so many periods that I didn't remember, I quit drinking. I quit everything. I mean, I just quit for 5 years. I wouldn't even touch a drink. That was it.
Because you don't remember 5 years. You're like,
no, it's just that like 6 months out with Motley Crue, I only remembered bits and pieces of it. So I thought, you know what, I want to preserve my brain. And so,
real quick in the chat, Mike Neese has a good question. He says, "Did you and do you now, when you tour, go out with a guitar tech, or do you change your own strings and do all that stuff?"
I wasn't doing it on the last tour because it was basically just our four guys, and I was the tour manager, and I was also the general manager. Like I took care of all the advancing for the shows, making sure the back line was there and everything. And I'm the one that got paid. I'm the one that paid everybody. I'm the one that paid the taxes. I did all the accounting and everything. So it was a heavy load on me. And to bring in a whole crew, that's a major deal.
It's a lot of money.
And it's very expensive. In fact, a lot of the bands that we played with, a lot of them didn't have a crew, or they only had like one or two crew guys, and that's it. And most of them didn't even have a tour manager. They were doing it themselves, like I was the tour manager. And so everybody was trying to make it more cost effective because you weren't making the same amount of payola as you were back in the day.
Right.
Right. It's just the nature of the beast. So.
And I saw that last tour in Irvine during a festival. I forget what it was called. Terrific show. I think you might have been playing like a black guitar, trans black something. It was
might have been the black one with the blue graph on it.
No, I think it was. You know what it was?
I don't think it had a graphic.
It was a DBZ guitar, and it had this. It was black, but it had this gray pattern on it.
Yeah, it was like a trans black kind of. Very, very pretty guitar, and the show was very, very tight. I was really happy because I was sitting on the side of the stage with my then girlfriend, and I was just enjoying it because I hadn't seen you guys, since the late '80s, and I was really impressed just how tight you guys were. Even with a new frontman, it was almost like you just didn't even stop for 20 years. It was like you just continued right where you left off, just really, really tight.
A lot of shows, so. We were becoming a pretty well-oiled machine at that point. Like I was saying with Kenny, he didn't work out because, it's like the next rehearsal. I told you, like he was really messed up on the next rehearsal, and then the next one after that, he didn't show up. And so I was flying down from Seattle. I was living in Seattle at the time, flying down to LA, and so it was pretty expensive on my part, and because I'd fly down, I'd get a hotel and everything, and rent a car and all that, and plus I'd pay, for the rehearsal place as well. with the other guys. And when Kenny didn't show up, I kind of was going to throw in the towel and just go, you know what, this isn't going to work. And then Simon, you know, the singer, he said, look, I got this guy that he's a great drummer, has a great attitude. He's from Switzerland. Simon's from Brazil. So it's kind of, you know, like an international thing. And he said, look, just give it one more chance. You know, next rehearsal, come down and he'll be ready to go. And so Mark Whelan, you know, was the new drummer. I came down and him and Randy just clicked it off right away. And I loved his drumming and I loved his personality and everything. So it happened. So all the music and the tightness of the band came together really quickly. And,
That's terrific.
Yeah.
No,
So I remember that day at Irvine. It was so damn hot. We
It was
were only
very
doing a half-hour set, and then remember the revolving stage?
Yeah. Because what
They
it was
started-
for
they
the
started
audience.
to move it because we went a little bit overtime. They started to move it at the end of Turn Up the Radio, and I'm
For
going,
the-
wait, you know.
For the audience that wasn't there, it was basically a round stage with a wall, and on one side you had, facing the audience, the band on stage, and right behind it was the next act ready to go, because there was like 20 something bands that weekend. So as you finished your last song, the stage would start turning, and you would basically be, you know, turned away from the stage as the next band started playing. I remember Sebastian Bach trying to finish his song, and he's like running to the other side of the stage to hang off the wall. It was a great show, but you guys were terrific. You were really, really tight. And again, like you said, a well-oiled machine. And I was really happy to see that because I've been a fan since the beginning. Now, here's the question. At that time, you left.
Yeah.
You left. You basically, were you just tired of it? Because it wasn't like everything wasn't going terrific. Were you looking for the next new thing, or?
Yeah, that's all it was, because the band was great, and we all got along wonderfully, you know. So that wasn't an issue at all. What it was I looked at, is this the last thing I want to do musically? And I thought, you know what? Like with the Network 23 album, I have all these songs, all these ideas, you know, and I wanted to start concentrating on that. And so I started writing, but the writing I was doing was not right for Autograph.
Was it more like your
was
solo
right
album?
What's that?
Was it more like your solo album was?
Yeah.
Okay, which is terrific.
You know, and so I heard myself going in that direction, and I thought, you know what? I want to follow that, because if I keep with Autograph, then I'm going to end up being probably too burned out, because I was also doing all the business end of it, you know, too.
Right.
Which was very taxing on me, because I was busy constantly doing that stuff. And plus, for a while, I had a music school in Seattle. I was running that simultaneously. So
I was gonna ask you that. What years were you running that, and are you still running that?
No. I'm down to Florida now. I actually left the school. I actually gave the whole school away. I was running that from 2005 to 2016.
Okay,
and,
so basically, right from your solo album into the music school, at the same time you were doing clinics, or were you doing clinics only earlier?
Then, no, I was
Okay. So you went from the solo album to the music school, and basically right up through the reunion.
Yes, exactly. Well,
Nice.
the reunion started, you know, while I still had the school,
Right.
You know, into
2013.
Like 3 years.
Right.
But it was so much for me to try to balance everything, because, you know, it was very time consuming running the school. I had 12 teachers working for me, you know, and plus I was teaching, and so. But anyway, I was getting sick all the time in Seattle. I'm allergic to the molds up there, and that cold, damp weather just didn't agree with me. And you know, I have asthma, and I have the beginning stages of COPD. So my pulmonary specialist, he says, because you know, the last year I was there, I had to rush myself to the emergency room 4 different times because I got these respiratory infections.
Wow.
So it's always rainy up there and cold and wet.
It's always rainy, and even during the summertime, a lot of times it's very cold. You know,
That's why
hot weather, but basically, you know, it's pretty steady, and the summers are really short. The summer usually start at like you know, like July 5th, and then Labor Day weekend, the summer was over. So very short summer.
That's why grunge was always such a depressing music.
That's right.
They're like
It was all,
singing about depressing.
that's what I
LA
didn't
were
like
like
about grunge was because of the fact that it was it was it was
depressing.
about depression. It was all about suicide. It was all about drug addiction. And
Yeah, I
just-
mean, even
This
Kurt
isn't fun.
Cobain,
This is
even
like
Kurt
the 80s.
Cobain, even Kurt Cobain couldn't take it anymore. He's like,
Right.
I'm in my sweater, it's itchy, I'm miserable, my guitar's ugly, it's raining, And meanwhile, you're coming out of LA where it's like nothing but a good time, and
That's right, exactly.
drinking and party all night, and Sunset Strip. Yeah, it's a big difference. It's a big
Yeah,
difference.
it is a huge difference. But
So now you've left Autograph, and you basically left that for greener pastures. You were replaced by Jimmy Bell of House of Lords.
Yep.
We're very respectful.
great player. Me and Jimmy are good friends, and so it was just that I just wanted to start putting my energy into a new project. And what I'm doing now, it's more the way my writing is now. It's more cutting edge, even than it was with the Network 23 stuff, because the Network 23 stuff, nobody had heard that. And everybody that heard it, they said, this is you doing this? Because this is so different from what you're known for, which is the 80s autograph stuff, And I said,
until they hear your solo album.
Right. And so, I thought, you know what? I want to start concentrating on that again. And then the whole COVID-19 thing happened. And I put together this whole Blue Neptune thing, which is going to be the name of the new project.
Now, is it going to be a band, or is that what you're calling just your solo?
It's just my solo album, but we may tour. It depends on how things are going at that time. But the main thing is I want to get the recording done. It may take a year to get the recording done because of the fact that I'm going to be very meticulous, just like I was. I spent a year and a half recording Network 23, and
but it shows it. The product shows it.
Yes, I think it does. I listen to it. I listen back to it to this day, and I go, God, I did all that.
If you guys in the audience haven't listened to Network 23 yet, Steve's solo album from 2004, go ahead and give it a listen online. And is there a place you can order that? If
you can get it through CD Baby, Spotify. But the thing is you can listen to the whole album for free if you just go Steve Lynch Network 23 and all the songs pop up on it.
Okay.
Oh, that's very nice.
So they can listen to it. In fact, I have a lot of videos on there that show solos that I did, the old autograph solos, and also the missing pieces solos from that. I show how to do them, and how I'm doing them, and then also like most of the stuff off of the Network 23 thing, you can see how I'm playing the solos on there, which I look at it like that was probably my best guitar work on
the solo.
Yeah.
It's a terrific album. And a lot of people don't know about it because, again, they think, okay, Autograph, he did Autograph. And then in the 90s, that other album, Missing Pieces, was released. And then they got back together in 2013. But it wasn't promoted the way that, it was back in the day where you'd know something new on the radio, something new on MTV. So you have to really follow an artist.
Well, what happened is I after I got done finishing the Network 23 album, is I hired Marco Babineau, who used to be, in the promotions department for Geffen Records. And I had him shop it to different labels. And he said the problem is they don't even want to listen to it because of the fact that you're an 80s guitar player. So I had that stigma attached to me. And this, I sent it to him back in 95. When I first completed it, and I told you there was a stipulation in the contract when the record label went under that I couldn't release it for 10 years, and that's why it didn't come out till 2004.
But you know what? Better that it didn't come out in the 90s, because in the 90s, nobody was looking for any guitar heroes.
That's right.
That's right. It would have gotten lost. It would have gotten lost.
Totally lost. Yeah. And again, even Missing Pieces, released in 97. After the grunge kind of faded out and it was mostly hip hop on the radio, but still not enough time to really say, oh, a new Autograph album, now's the right time for it, But your solo album came out at a very good time. And I'm glad, because it is a really good product. I don't think a lot of people or enough people know about. I know about it because I have it.
Right.
but a lot, I followed you. But a lot of people just didn't know you did a solo album, and it's a good solo album. It's a really, really good one. And I'm looking forward to Blue Neptune. If you're telling me that's going to be a similar quality product,
Yes,
I think
it
Blue
will be.
Neptune is going to be terrific.
A little bit more cutting edge techniques, and I also want to incorporate different beats, like some African beats and stuff like that, because whenever I put different beats behind me, it makes me write differently. It makes me think completely out of the box. And I also I've been writing, fairly simple chord progressions, but I'm writing string parts over the top of them.
Mm-hmm.
And because I want to incorporate, cello and viola and violin in it, and in some of the pieces, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Just because I've never done that before, and I really want to experiment with orchestral instruments as well. And I also want to experiment with the mandolin and pedal steel guitar and more slide guitar. Just because of the fact that each thing, really, shows you another side as to who you are, not only as a guitarist, but also as a writer, a composer. And I want to create something that I've never done before. And I hear these amazing things in my head, and I capture as much of it as I can. Like in the middle of the night, I have to run and grab my guitar and grab my phone and put it down real quick. And I have dozens of these kind of things, where just a reminder of what I had in my head, and then I end up coming back to it and writing and completing it later on. But I'm really excited about this. Right now, all my focus is, of course, on my book, because one thing I've learned in my older age, is the fact that you really have to focus on one thing at a time. Otherwise, you're kind of substituting the quality of what you're putting into one project by not being completely focused on it.
Right. It's kind of the jack of all trades, but master of none.
That's right. Exactly. That's a very good analogy. And so what I've decided to do is to complete, my book first, that's going very well. I'm putting like 4 or 5 hours a day into it. And
see, COVID's not all bad. It gives you a lot of time at home that you might not always have to do that writing.
That's right. And that's why, the timing ended up being right now, because of the fact that, it can't play live. I can't bring the musicians in and put them into the studio, which is Clearview Studios here in Clearwater. And so I can't bring anybody in to play, once I get the basics down. So I thought now is the time to actually finish the book. And I look at it, my timeline that I'm putting on myself is it'll be done by January, either late December or into January. With the way I'm writing now and the amount of hours that I'm putting in, it's going to be a thick book, because
that's good. You have a lot. Like you have a lot of stories to tell
that happened, throughout my life. Where, and I look back at it, and it's mainly going to be a humorous book, because I look back at it and I just go, my God, did I really go through that experience? And you go, yeah, I did. I remember the details of it. So.
And you've always, correct me if I'm wrong, you've always lived your life, because one of your big hobbies is old school philosophers.
Yes, absolutely.
You'll incorporate, I think, some of that into the book, I would imagine.
Yes, I am.
Because you've lived a lot of life going by those judgments of you'll live the truth and live absolutely. Follow the dream and things like that.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not only philosophies, it's things like the law of attraction, which I've studied, and just a lot of different spiritual things. But, those old school philosophers, that's like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, like Walt Whitman, and Friedrich Nietzsche, which is kind of taboo to a lot of people, but I think it's brilliant. And you read these things, and boy, these are such deep thinkers. And I'm really just confounded by how deeply they can look at life, and how they have this sense of being able to explain things in such an explicit, deep, emotional way.
These are people that thought out of the box for their time.
Absolutely.
Right now, you have currently very popular. You have someone like Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes,
is very popular. But if you go back, like Walt Whitman goes back further, and some of these guys are into what, the 1800s. if I remember. Yeah.
Everybody that I just mentioned was from the 1800s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's pretty amazing when you start delving into this. And I have a small library and all that crazy stuff. And,
It's good to read. It keeps you sharp.
And also,
Absolutely.
I was just on this show that was similar to a Coast to Coast show, with Art Bell and then later with George Nuri. And that's all we talked about was conspiracy things and secret societies and ancient archaeology and philosophies and all these really interesting topics. And
fascinating.
I was just talking about that kind of stuff. And they asked me to come back on because we didn't even scratch the surface of all the topics that I've studied,
Sure.
That's
So
amazing.
I have a different side to me where I'm just really, really heavily influenced into learning about all these different things.
Well, it's led you down the right road so far.
Yeah.
Go with what works.
Maybe we can talk about some of that stuff on our part 2 with you.
I would love to. Absolutely.
Mhm.
What other hobbies do you have?
Other than that, basically I do a lot of walks in the park. I love to be out in nature. That's one thing I did in Washington a lot is I went on these hours long hikes, sometimes for even a couple of days, where I just go out into the wilderness and just like experience out there, even all by myself. And most of the time it is just by myself. I'm single and I'm living in Florida and I got all these wonderful places to hike around me right now. And so I'm really enjoying that. And also I got Netflix a couple months ago.
you go.
Tiger King.
So you're on both
Tiger
sides.
King. You saw Tiger King? You saw Tiger King?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Have you watched Tiger King?
No.
No, you're the only one.
Me too. I haven't either.
That's two. That's two of you whose brains haven't been melted. You're lucky. The rest of us, we're done with it.
I've been mainly watching documentaries on there, documentaries on that, and then also Tubi, and then
sure,
also the Plex channel, and then also Amazon.
Amazon's got great stuff right now.
Yeah, and gosh, I just watched this one the other night, and it just came out, and it was fascinating. It was about the pandemic that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. And it's a brilliantly done documentary. They really did the research on this. Now, I didn't know, this was one thing that really caught my eye and really got my attention, is the fact that Bill Gates owns the patent on COVID-19. He owns the patent. I didn't know you could patent a disease.
Yeah, I didn't know you could patent it either.
That's insane.
And it was by Xi Jinping, that lady, and he actually owns it. He's owned it since 2018. And that really makes you wonder what's really going on. And then he's got the rights to be able to own the vaccine. So you go, okay, wait a minute. The guy that actually owns the patent on COVID-19, and then he's got first rights to be able to own the vaccine.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's insane.
That's great. Now, the working title of your book is going to be called Confessions of a Rock Guitarist. But again, that's a working title. You might tweak that. Yeah. But that's going to be great because think of the success someone like Motley Crue has gotten with The Dirt and Slash's book, and obviously Nikki Sixx with the Heroin Diaries. All these books and have been made into movie docs. Yeah. And there's that possibility. You've led one heck of a life, my friend.
Yeah.
And let me go ahead.
You don't know the half of it. Like
we will.
Yes, you will. You will. I speak also of my whole spiritual journey, my philosophies in there. I talk about going to the Guitar Institute. I talk about my early days back in the late 70s of experimenting with LSD and how that changed my life.
Wow.
And all kinds of stuff. A heroin addiction that I had.
So that'll be very, very interesting. I'm glad you survived that. 15 years old. Wow. Living in a tent with a heroin addiction.
Yes.
You were a rock legend, my friend. You really are.
He really is.
You really are. I can't wait to read that book at some point. Let me also share with everyone that don't know, you and Autograph have been interwoven in pop culture in so many ways. Let me just rattle off a few movies and TV shows that your music has appeared. Movie Secret Admirer, television show Miami Vice in a few episode examples.
Yeah.
Like Father Like Son, not only the Autograph's music, but also the band did a cameo in that movie.
Yes, we played live. That's live.
That's terrific. Hot Tub Time Machine, Fright Night, and Grand Theft Auto, the video games, two different video games. You guys' music appear. The movie Youngblood. That's just scratching the surface.
And then River Rat with Tommy Lee Jones. We did another one. Oh gosh, it was a party teen movie. I can't remember what the heck the name of it was, but another one of those. And so just we were constantly putting stuff out. And we were doing most of
everywhere
it on the road too. We'd fly back in and do a recording, and then fly right back out. And we just like we did when we played on Dick Clark's American Bandstand twice.
I remember that.
Yeah.
When you first came out, that was really early.
Because you think back in the early '60s, here I am watching American Bandstand, and then here you are talking to the guy, and taking pictures with him and stuff. And
did you ever think you'd be on Dick Clark?
What's that?
Did you ever, when you were first watching that in the late '60s, did you ever think when you got older and into a band you'd be on that show?
Absolutely not.
And he's joking with the band too. He's saying, "This is the only band I've ever met that has 3 Steves."
Yeah,
I remember that. I remember that. He's pointing out. He's like, "You're a Steve, and you're a Steve, and you're a Steve." Such a nice guy.
Yeah, he was just a great guy. Him and his wife run the whole thing, and they don't just shoot one episode when they're there. They only do it on Sunday. They shoot 3 episodes.
Oh wow!
So
yeah,
it's crazy. We did ours in the morning with that kid group called First Edition.
Right. Was it First Edition or New Edition? I think.
Was it New Edition?
I think it was New Edition.
Oh, yeah,
New
First
Edition.
Was
New Edition. Right.
New Edition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
were you playing live on that show, or was that all lip sync?
No, it was tape. No,
that was okay.
Yeah. It was all synced.
So it's like Top of the Pops is in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then we did Solid Gold. Remember that show?
Sure.
Yeah. So. Yeah,
all you need to do is Soul Train.
So,
yeah.
With Don Cornelius. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Autograph. I got a couple of random questions for you. Some from the audience that I've taken notes on as we've gone on, and some I've just come up with out of the blue. So let's do a little speed round. One guitar you got rid of, you wish you still had.
Yes.
Which
Name
one?
it. Name it.
It was probably my 1955 Les Paul.
What happened with that?
I sold it because I was a starving musician at the Guitar Institute.
Okay, so in the late 70s?
Yeah.
Nice. If you could have one old vintage guitar you didn't already own, what would it be? Something you want to find.
It would probably be a 57 Strat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's see, I asked that. What do you think of current crop of relict guitars?
What do you mean? As far
like this is a brand new guitar, but it's beat up, made to look old.
It's lightly beat up. There are ones that are beat to hell, like your elbow in a weird position that you'd never find wear of in 40 years of playing. Some of these, like half the paint's missing. And what do you think of those?
Well, you know what? It depends on the person. If they want that kind of thing, I prefer to actually put the wear on it myself.
There you go. That's how I feel. Yeah. Let's see. What is your biggest career regret?
Oh boy.
If you could turn back time, change one thing.
Probably signing with the label that I did for my solo album.
How come? Why is that?
They went bankrupt, and it just, the fact that it really screwed up my life because of that, and that I went through $50,000 on top of it to try to finish the album.
Okay.
My battery's starting to give out. I just wanted to let you know. But
I'm
we're gonna
on,
be done
I'm
in a
on the
minute.
I'm on the last
Okay.
10 minutes if that'll last out.
yeah, it's got 10% now, so it'll probably last.
I think we'll be good. Let's see. Who today do you dream to work with? If you could have your pick of who to work with in the industry today.
Probably Jimmy Page and David Gilmour and Jeff Beck, maybe.
Sure.
Nice.
But you know, as far as you know, those are like some of my favorite bands. But as far as producers, you know, really, I look at myself like I want myself to produce my stuff because there's a certain way that I hear things, and I like to be able to create and have, you know,
Control.
complete control of it.
Artistic control. It gets it from your head right into the product, which is a great thing.
When I bring in other people, then they seem to take away the vibe completely, and that's why I did my solo album the way I did it, and I plan on doing this one the same way. So
You could see a concert of one musician who passed away. I'm sure I know this answer.
probably Hendrix.
That's what I thought you'd say. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because, you know, I saw him twice. In fact, the last time I saw him was just months before he died. It was only like, you know, maybe 4 months before he died. And that was in Seattle at Six Stadium. And I saw him in 1967 at the Coliseum in Seattle. And I was only 12 years old. And I think it was Mountain that was opening up for him. Leslie West. Mountain.
That's amazing.
Sure, Leslie West.
Yeah.
Ozzy and Vince Neil guest appeared in your video for Loud and Clear. What was the story behind that?
Well, we'd gotten to know Ozzy because we did Headbangers Ball with him, and that's a funny story in itself. And of course, we toured with Motley Crue before that, so we knew Vince from that. And we always used to run into guys from Motley Crue and everything in LA anyway, off the Sunset Strip in Hollywood and all that. But we did Headbangers Ball in New York City with Ozzy. And Ozzy that morning had just gotten out of Betty Ford Center. And so he came in, you know, Sharon brought him in, and he couldn't read the teleprompter. He'd go, this is Ozzy. Start it again, damn it.
Wait a second. Now I don't know which one of you two. I don't know which one of you two guys does Ozzy better.
I always on Talking Guitars and 80s Metal Live, I also do Ozzy Osbourne. I don't want to do another show. I want to go to bed, Sharon. Oh, come on, Ozzy, I need more money. I don't even know what day it is.
That's really good.
Yours is good too.
Anyway, about 20 minutes in, when Ozzy couldn't make it even through the first sentence, he said, "Sharon, go get me an effing six-pack." You know, and Sharon goes, "Ozzy, you just got it out," you know, and he said, "Sharon, go get me a damn six-pack." And so she did. She went down the elevator and down to the little store down there, got him a six-pack, brought it back up, and Ozzy drank that in about 15 minutes. He drank the whole thing. And then he goes, and this is when he had that real spiky hair.
The short
spiky hair all over the place. And his hair was shaking before. That's another thing, is they couldn't get his hair to stop shaking. And they said, "Ozzy, you got to get your hair to stop shaking." He said, "I can't. I need a drink, damn it." And, you know, so anyway, after he drank that, he said, "Okay, roll it." And he says, "Hello, this is Ozzy Osbourne. I'm here with my mate's autograph, and we're on the MTV's Headbanger Ball." He got it perfect on the first take. You know, it's just amazing that his head doesn't work unless he's in a certain you know, frame of mind.
My goodness.
You know?
Well, if it makes you normal.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's see. Guitar brands you've been with: Jackson, Charvel, Gill, Dean, Carvin. Also, I believe you played a Carvin V at one point.
No, oh yeah. Well, that was they were just basically giving me guitars to see if I wanted to sign with them, but I actually never did an actual endorsement with them.
Who did you like out of those brands? Who was like
the last one was the West Tone ones, but it was especially made one by this guy Dana Guitars, that was through the West Tone company, and his guitars were just amazing. And I of course really like the guitars that I'm playing now, because, you know.
Which are made by who?
Pardon me?
Which are made by who? right now?
That's by Dale Roberts out of Jacksonville, Florida. He's just a small. He just has a little shop up there, but he does great work on them. You know, he did an amazing job on the two that I've gotten from him so far. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And how did you like the Jackson Charvels versus the Guild and the Dean?
Jackson was always my favorite. Yeah.
And why'd you leave Jackson?
Well, basically, our deal was up with RCA, and Autograph kind of fell apart. So I didn't really leave them. I was just doing, different things at the time, and I wasn't out touring. I didn't go out touring until Autograph reformed.
Okay.
I didn't do any more touring. So basically, I never really left them. There was just, the deal just kind of faded away. And Grover sold the company, and
Mm-hmm.
Whose music do you enjoy now?
You know what? I really like the band Porcupine Tree.
Okay.
They're a British band, and they're kind of progressive. Them and Blackfield, and Stephen Wilson is the singer for the group, and he's the one that writes all the material and everything. I've seen them about 5 times live, and they're just amazing. The musicianship and the arrangement and the composition of the songs and everything. I really look at that and I go, they're kind of like a modern day Pink Floyd. And I just love that stuff. And I listen to a variety of stuff, though. I listen to groups like Massive Attack, just because it's so different. It's more electronic stuff, but it's so different. When I listen to the beats, it triggers different things in my mind, and I like that. I don't really like the straight ahead rock stuff anymore. I've kind of outgrown that. So I'm looking for more experimental stuff.
Very cool. And combo question: best fan experience and craziest fan. So give me 2 fans: craziest fan and best fan experience.
Well, I can answer the crazy one for him.
Well,
yes.
Him right there, because he knows more about Steve than Steve knows about Steve.
The craziest one would be the one that got on the tour bus.
That's a great one. Could you we have a tremendous fan, good friend of ours in the audience. Could you give a shout out to our buddy Fruitcake Tony?
Oh, Tony, hey, what's up?
Fruitcake Tony is the biggest fan of your work on the planet, so and he's been texting like through the show. Please have Steve shout out, please, and he's such a sweet guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Cool. He has his own
pleasure to meet you on here, my friend. Thank you.
He actually has his own show on Saturday afternoons with Steven Rosen. I think it's called
cool. Pick.
It's about guitar picks. It's about oh Jesus! I'm so sorry for.
I forget the name. I forget the name too. It's some. Someone give me the name of Tony's show in the chat, please.
He'll say it in a second.
Well, while we're doing that, favorite incarnation of Kiss.
I would say the one in the '80s because I liked their writing then.
With Bruce Kulick?
Yes, it would be. Yeah.
Nice.
Because they're writing and they're, but the old Kiss stuff, I didn't really listen to much of it at all. I was really into bands. I was really into Led Zeppelin back in those days and Pink Floyd and the early Kiss stuff. It just kind of glazed by me. And that's also a period of my life where I started to listen to Al Di Meola. And then later on, the last guitar player that I was influenced by was a guitarist by the name of Alan Holsworth. And I listened to him a lot when I was going to the Guitar Institute, and I was trying to figure out stuff that he was doing two hands. But then I found out that this guy's got this incredible stretch with his left hand, and he was doing most all that stuff with just his left hand, but it was so legato, and the notes that he chose were just so melodic, and in that whole thing. I mean, it was like you were turning on tap water and then turning it back off. It was that smooth. And he was a big influence on my later playing. You can hear a bit of him in a lot of the solos that I do when I'm doing legato parts, two-handed stuff. But that's basically the kind of stuff that I'm really into.
By the way, Tony's show is called Show Me Your Pick.
That's right.
And it's on YouTube. So I wanted to get that through because he's such a huge fan of yours. I mean, we all are. Last interesting question. Fans between Japan And he would love one of your picks, man. He would
That's not a
love one of
problem.
your
I can
picks.
send him one.
If I think he would die. He would melt. He would love it.
I'd be
And
glad to.
I'm gonna loan you this guitar, and when I get it back, you throw a pick in my case too.
You got it.
Yeah.
I love that. Last question: fans in Europe versus fans in Japan versus fans in America. What's the difference that you feel? What do you see? How's your reception?
I love the fans in America. In Europe, they're great. They're a little bit more reserved, and in Japan, they're absolutely nuts. So
They have a big love of American music
Yes.
in Japan.
American rock
Yeah.
music.
They never in America they kind of got into the grunge, then hip hop. They're always fickle. In Japan, they're still into that 80s
Oh,
music,
yeah.
and they'll follow your career with loyalty.
yeah, I mean, there's bands from back in the '80s that'll still sell out Budokan when they go over there. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty impressive how
Crazy.
dedicated they are. To that whole genre.
Steve, you have our audience. Tell the fans if there's something you want to tell them. Now's your stage, right there. There you go. What do you got
Okay.
to say?
I just love all of you for hanging in with me and giving me all the support that you have throughout the years. And believe me, the projects, including my book that I'm doing in the future, I won't disappoint. I guarantee you that. And thank you for always being with me. And to you guitar players out there, write from your heart. Don't pay any attention to what's happened previously in music. You can always learn a little bit from other people, but you know what? Keep true to yourself and write what you really feel.
Absolutely.
Bravo. Steve, you are a guitar legend. You're the most humble man on the planet, and you're an innovator and a teacher. And as a personal fan, I'm sure I speak for all the audience. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. You're
Thank you guys.
terrific
It was
guest
my
to me.
pleasure. It was definitely my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Steve, I want to
Really.
personally thank you for taking my calls, hanging out and talking to me, becoming friends. It is a
Absolutely.
pleasure. I've always been a big fan. I've always wanted to say, man, I'd like to be friends with that guy.
Very cool. Now
And
we are.
And my dream has come true. It's amazing. It's amazing, and I appreciate it. I definitely want to have a part 2 with you. We'll come up with a date in the next few weeks. We'll set, because I'm booked until November, but we can talk in the next couple of weeks and come up with a date.
Okay.
I definitely want to talk about your book when it comes out, and maybe have a book giveaway.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
an
love to.
autographed. I'll buy it and we'll give it away on the show.
Yeah.
An autographed copy of it.
Yeah.
And I'm personally looking very forward to the book and to the Blue Neptune project, because I loved so much your first solo album, and you've just been consistent in my eyes
Well,
with
thank
with
you.
terrific music. So really
Thank you
looking
very
forward
much
to
for
that.
Thank you.
No,
Yeah.
for sure.
Steve, if your phone craps out, it craps out. But if you can, let's talk for a second after the show on this. Just stay here
Okay.
with me while I
Yeah.
just say goodnight to everyone.
Yeah, sure,
John,
absolutely.
John Mancuda, thank you so much for doing this tonight with me.
Honor. Pleasure.
So everyone knows, Ty will be back next week. He had some work. He was out of town for work, and he's on a plane. He might be landing now. But he will be back. And next week we have Ronnie Lee, one of the very first women rockers in rock and roll history. Check that out next Thursday night. Everyone, thank you so much. Steve, thank you. I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. And here we go. Good night.
Steve, hang